Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. What's up, DB?
Nothing.
You all right over there?
Yeah, I'm good.
You buffering for a second?
Loading.
Jason wants to know if you had deviled eggs and Fruit Loops for breakfast.
Already?
That's what he asked. He's
no.
in the chat. He was just asking, you know.
I have had.
So you probably haven't eaten yet.
No, I haven't had cereal in multiple years.
Really?
And I love cereal.
Cereal's real good.
You talk about competitive stamina.
Yeah.
Every time I open the pantry door, like there's usually 3 or 4 boxes.
Really? Your kids get after it?
Yeah, sometimes Zoe will put some in her Ziploc bag for snacks.
Sure.
Micah likes it at night.
Yeah.
And Caleb is literally, a.k.a. the serial killer.
Spelled different.
Fudge. So, and they go through their little spells.
Yeah.
So currently, we've got Fruit of the Pebbles.
Okay. Fruity Pebbles is solid.
Like, listen, man, I don't want to hear you get into the different flavors. It's
okay. It's
fine.
a quality. It is a quality.
I knew where the disconnect was anyway.
Where?
Although you count as a minority.
Yeah.
But see, we use colors as the flavor. Most other people say
The flavor. Yeah, somebody brought that up with Kool-Aid, and I think that made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's a cultural thing.
Because I don't say purple Kool-Aid. I would say grape Kool-Aid.
How do you classify Gatorade?
I go by flavor.
Really?
Yeah, so I'll do like the fruit punch or the cool breeze or the lemonade. Or the lemon lime, I guess. Not
Okay,
lemonade.
because lemonade is different.
Yeah, lemon lime. The
Okay.
lemon lime one.
What's pink?
I don't know. I don't drink the pink one. I do Glacier Freeze. I'll do Glacier Freeze. I like that
Now
one.
you're just showing off.
Well, I got a little versatility. I get different. I get the variety pack sometimes.
Arctic Blast.
Arctic Blast is a good one. That's like the
Glacial
white
Freeze.
one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Berry Rush. I don't use any of that.
Yeah, you're just like, give me the purple one.
Super coated. Why'd you change the dialect?
What'd I do?
That just rolls right off the tongue, huh? Give me the purple. Like, why do I have to be aggressive? Why couldn't I just say, hey, I'd like the purple one?
Yeah, that's what.
See, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking
That's
about.
what I said.
It's just embedded.
You were just like, hey,
It's in your dana.
can I have the?
My man, you just went into like mini character. That's embarrassing. I can't believe your mom is such a nice lady.
I can't either.
Man, did she spit you out? Fudge.
You should see the rest of my siblings.
Oh, I've heard. No comment. I plead the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fifth.
I do think that is a cultural thing, that like using colors versus flavors.
Sure.
I think yeah.
I think I'm sitting next to somebody who
What?
gives zero care.
What?
Do it again. Not only was I angry, it was like broken ebonics.
Give me that purple.
Just uncalled for. And you do it. It's just instinctive. It's.
I don't even know what that voice is. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't know where I came up with
I
it.
don't either. But it's fine. I mean, I see what we're on.
What are we on today?
Some nonsense.
Some stuff?
Yeah.
You're gonna talk about nonsense. So I did the NBNR podcast last night.
Oh man.
I'm gonna be honest, that got out of pocket.
So I had a feeling they may have you in the scope because they come up a lot on the show.
Yeah. Well, I like them. They're good guys.
Me too.
Obviously, Kyle works for Hurrdat
Yeah.
proper officially. You know.
Were you within range, locked and loaded?
Oh yeah. We had
Was it like Duck Hunt? Did they cheat and put the gun close to
To
the
be
string?
fair, I did turn.
Ping.
I got after Connor a little bit.
Why?
Well, so I found out he was a Duke fan,
Oh,
and so I think it was justified.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I know.
That's unfortunate.
We made
St. Louis Jordan knows what he wants to miss. What he missed. Go back and listen to the first segment.
well, we're still in the first segment.
I'm talking about yesterday.
Oh yeah,
Because that was on my timeline quite a bit.
yeah. What was on your timeline?
No, they just were regurgitating the conversation.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. No, it's all good. We're off to a good start this morning. You didn't eat breakfast?
Just not even closet anymore. You're just like, we're out here.
This is where the magic happens.
I mean, we're out here, right? It's where the magic happens. I talked to him for a long time yesterday.
Yeah, how's he doing?
I think just okay.
Okay.
I think just okay. Very, very, very. Just good thing there wasn't a presser this week.
Yeah, a little blowback from
Just it's weird.
a lot going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I could understand. I could understand if you're Coach Rhule and you're kind of sitting here and you're like, "Hey, I'm trying to do the best thing for this program."
So you know what he'd tell you?
What's that?
I get if he walked in these doors right now, he said, I have two things, really three, and the other is a byproduct of the other two that I have to do for this program.
What's that?
Number one, take care of the players within the program. I have to make sure
You do what's best for them.
That physically, psychologically, emotionally, that this is a place that they can grow into productive young men. He said number two,
consistent with what he said all along.
Number two,
yeah,
I have to protect this university and this football team's best interest. Number three, I have to win games.
Yeah.
He said, every decision that I make
goes through one of those lenses.
Will have one of those three things. And it was just interesting how I think it was kind of rhetorical, and he didn't say it out loud, but I could just hear it because we were just talking about data, just data. And I think it's just interesting that I think we should just rally around one of those three things.
Yeah.
Because that's it. I mean, whether it's the spring game or Tennessee or I don't know what else is going to come up here in the next 3 weeks. Has Aramark decided on what they're going to? Aramark decided on what?
The food?
Yeah.
No Valentinos, no Runza, whatever.
So have they decided anything?
I don't think officially, but it seems like Valentinos is going to be gone.
I sure hope so.
That's the sense that people get.
That's not what he thinks. Don't put that on him.
I don't know.
I'm just playing.
I was just saying that I just
figured since we're being mean-spirited this morning, here you go with that old innocent look.
What would you? What do you mean?
GOH with that, man.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? Whose voice is that?
What do you mean? No, I could get how if that's your filter and that those are your only goals, and you're doing the things that you think are required to meet those goals, and it's met with some of the consternation or backlash or outright anger that some of it's been met with. Yeah, that's what that one voice was. It was angry. It was getting mad about wanting some Kool-Aid.
That is the last. That is typically the last of the emotions that I elicit.
I didn't say it was you. I just said somebody wanted.
Contrary to popular belief, somebody said I was triggered yesterday. He's triggered.
Might have been Game Dog's favorite word. Well, actually, there was a different one that was his favorite word, but triggered might have been second.
Yeah. So real time.
Yeah.
I didn't catch all those.
Oh, there's like 12.
There were several.
There was a lot. Yeah.
It's fine.
It was aggressive. But no, I could understand if that's your lens and that's how you're operating, how it could be frustrating when there's a certain level of backlash because it'll feel like mistrust, right? And I think I don't know if you've ever been in a relationship, not necessarily like with a romantic partner, but a friend or a family member that you're trying to do what you think is best and you're trying to do what's best for not only you, but them as well, right? And that person, for whatever reason, assumes your worst intentions in your actions.
100%.
Right? And that is a thing that's
real life.
Yeah, that's real. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
And that not only is a thing that is damaging to the relationship, it also is very hurtful personally, right? Because you're trying to do the right thing. You may not get it right. Like, let's be clear there. But you're trying to do the right thing, but the assumption is automatically
do you want people to value your intentions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do want them to value my intentions.
Because I know there'll be times where I'll say, hey, listen, I'm on your team.
Yeah. It's like I'm advocating for you.
I'm on your team.
Or we're on the same team.
I'm arguably your biggest fan.
Yeah. You'll say we're on the same team all the time. Right?
I
like we're on the same team.
Yeah.
Like we're supposed to be pulling in the same direction. We may have different philosophies on how to accomplish this, 100%. But all of our goals are the same, right? And so I think having been in that position before personally, not obviously on the scale that Coach Rhule is right now, it's incredibly frustrating and hurtful when people assume your worst intentions. And I don't know if people are assuming Coach Rhule's worst intentions, but I don't think they're assuming his best intentions.
Yeah. I think the really cool byproduct, though, you talk about competitive stamina, is I think what they really want to instill, not only in the staff, but in the athletic department and down to the football team, and the sports teams in general, because Coach Bolt alludes to this a lot, a ton. And it's just be the best you can be, compete. Don't worry about any of the outside noise.
Mm-hmm.
Any of the outside noise. You could take it on an individual level with like Troy Dannen.
Sure.
Okay. Hey, listen, got to have some resolve. You're going to have to make some tough decisions. You're going to have some conviction. Okay. People are going to have opinions. Hang in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just keep those pillars, whatever those pillars are, whether it's, department, community, whatever it is, just keep those things centered.
Yeah.
And do what you do. You're going to get some right, you're going to get some wrong, man, but you got to stand your ground. What the staff. Hey, listen, we went with this guy to play. Stand your ground.
Mm-hmm.
We went with this decision. Hang in there, right? We wore the fighting road whites, man. Like, hang in there.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? That's kind of petty, but not petty, because it's a microcosm of how, if you allow, or when people compliment you,
mm-hmm.
right? Is some of these guys on like their Instagram stories and stuff, it's like they'll retweet like praise or whatever, and it's like, hey, not done yet. Not.
Yeah, it's like, that's okay, but
like, stop.
Job's not
buying
done.
into that. And that's what I liked about Painter after they left Indiana and they got beat.
Yeah.
Because they left.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, it's not out of the ordinary, but I thought the timing was interesting that they asked Painter about his counterpart's job,
mm-hmm.
and they had just lost.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, that's awkward.
And there were some tough calls in that game
mm-hmm.
that he got into later. But he said something that I think, whether it's the spring game or Tennessee
mm-hmm.
or I said it earlier. I don't think it has much to do with it.
Valentino.
Yeah, there'll be some blowback.
Beer in the stadium or whatever. Whatever it is.
Changing sidelines.
Yeah.
Whatever. Shane, you have that queued up? I thought this was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The question was, hey, what do you think about the situation Mike Woodson finds himself in,
mm-hmm.
and the state of Indiana basketball? Shane?
You want to see other people be successful and keep their job, just like any of you guys would think the same thing about the other people sitting to your left and right. So it's like anything. Like, you got to get a good person. You got to get a good coach. You got to get a guy to understand it. They've had a lot of turnover. Obviously, I think you got to look at some of the common denominators here more than anything. I think that's an important piece right here. Like, don't beat yourself. Like, don't beat yourself. Like, let's support somebody. I got to try that out for once every now and then. When shit goes wrong, like, whatever you think Purdue fans are happy about what just happened, like, you like, see, a fan base isn't the people that tweet. A fan base is the people when you're bleeding, they support you. Like, they jump in and off, they jump on and off things here way too much. Like, support your coach, man. Support your players. Don't tweet negative things about them. Like, be supportive. Like, see how that works for you. But they build them up and they overdo things. Like, quit overdoing shit. Just accurately, like, talk about what's actually happened. Like, don't like get like recruits and like that's Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. Then they come out here. Well, they're not Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. They're good college players. Like, and then they build it up and then they go, well, what's wrong? Well, they're part of it, but it's not their total fan base. It's just that everyone has a bad percentage of their fan base now because of Twitter. And then we think that's their fan base. It's not our fan base. It's not their real fan base either. And so I think that's an important piece, but it's hard for young people to hear all that and then go out and collectively play like, hey man, we're playing for you guys, but you dog us when we lose, and then we're the best when we win. Well, we're somewhere in between, right?
There's so much in there.
There is.
I played that 20 times yesterday, literally.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's applicable to just about anything you find yourself doing. Because there's just so many narratives. Like, well, just tell them to stay off of social media, or if I speak losses into existence or close games, like these guys are just soft, or we should be able to talk, like whatever it is. Nobody ever chooses to just not do it.
Sure.
It's always from the perspective of, well, you just need to handle it better.
So I do.
I just think it's weird, whether it's us or even players to some degree.
Yeah.
Or me. It can't always be somebody else.
Right. I do want to say I have to push back on some of the stuff.
Well, go ahead. You push. Man, you're a pusher. Push a T. Pushing me.
I agree that the negativity is generally a small portion of the fan base. I do kind of bristle up a little bit.
Dude, how do you do it?
Just bristle up.
Okay.
When people they kind of just like push aside, be like, oh, those are the internet people over there. I mean, most people are on the internet now. Now, I would say there's a small section of people on Twitter, or that are your fans on Twitter, that actually make up the negativity. Like, it's an even smaller, like, you can't just say, if the internet's bad. Like, that's a silly old man thing to say. Like, so I always get a little.
I think of Ryan. He sent me the dude from The Simpsons.
Yeah, it's like the man yelling at cloud.
Which I was 50 years old when I learned.
Really?
He told me that this year, and I was like, the what?
Yeah, the man yelling at clouds.
But now I know.
And so I do think there's a little bit of that in there. And I think it distracts from his larger point, which I think is accurate, that most of the fan base is positive. Most of the fan base is there to support you.
I'm surprised that's the part you gravitated towards first.
I'll use the word trigger, but it's a touch point for me, because I do get frustrated when people just dismiss a very widely used platform, or a lot, like a ton of your fans are on the internet.
And you're somebody that's not afraid to tweet or voice a strong opinion on social media.
And so that's the other thing is I am not.
So
right.
I am not.
Yeah. So it's a different perspective, right? And this is also, Matt Painter's a coach. You're a coach. You were a player. Like, I wasn't that. So I mostly come from it from the fan standpoint,
and
right?
The perspective is important.
Yeah, it is. Because
so I'm definitely not going to like peeing your cereal. Like, I'm listening.
As I hear him talk, I go, that's a very coach standpoint, and I get why he would say all those things. Some of those things are a little, I don't think they're super genuine in how they play out, because I understand you want people to support your team, and generally they do, especially here in Nebraska, right? But what's the thing you say all the time?
There's lots.
One of the big ones is, you don't get this life without me in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I actually stole that from DJ.
Well, I heard it from you, so I'm going to give you credit. I still haven't heard him say it, so I believe you.
Because you have to be careful when you use it, because you can come across as
a Richard head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I get it. I'm generally not afraid of that happening.
Got that right.
God dang right. Where's Nebraska when I need him?
But my point is, like, you don't get the support without the strong opinions. Mm-hmm. That's just a thing. And I'm not saying that you should be overly negative. And there's a ton of stuff that happens that is totally out of line, right? There's the way some people on the internet, on Twitter, talk to athletes and tweet at athletes, or tweet at recruits because they don't choose their favorite school or whatever, is totally out of line. And I wouldn't excuse that or make any reason for it in a million years. Mm-hmm. But like, if you're Indiana and you support your program to this degree, and you go, hey, we pay a lot of money for our resources, and we put a lot of money up in NIL to get our players, and we do X, Y, and Z, and we are a proud basketball, not just school, but state, it's really hard to convince me that I shouldn't be critical when those things aren't matching what my expectations are for the program. Now, we can have a conversation about how realistic those expectations are, sure. But I don't think anybody in their right mind in Indiana right now is sitting there and going, oh, I'm mad that we're not winning a national championship every year. It's, hey, it'd be nice if I didn't have to sweat out the tournament every year, right? And I think there's a really good corollary between that and Nebraska football, right? And listen, most of this is not on Matt Rhule. I understand that. But like any other relationship, we're bringing a lot of baggage to the table. Do a lot of us need therapy? Probably. But that's not a thing that you can necessarily control if you're Matt Rhule or Matt Painter or Mike Woodson or whoever else. You have to understand that these people who support you really unwaveringly, especially at Nebraska, they're going to have some strong opinions, and not all of it's your fault. And I think that's where Painter misses the point a little bit while saying that. But I can say that and say, hey, I generally think he's right. Like, can both of those things be true at the same time?
Yeah. Again, I just was having this conversation last night with my man JB and KC.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about listening and, his job compared to coaching and degrees of difficulty and how you have to be willing to listen,
mm-hmm.
right? To ascertain or to get the information that you need. And I say this all the time. Too often we listen to respond and not to learn,
mm-hmm.
right? We just want to say what we want to say right now.
We're just waiting for our turn to talk again.
Right.
Yeah.
And I understand how that lands. The very first thing that I thought of
mm-hmm.
was I think you got to look at the common denominators.
Again.
So that's where I would start.
He's right with a lot of it.
So that's where I would start.
Totally agree. And that's very applicable to Nebraska.
It's super applicable to Nebraska. We've tried and regurgitated a lot of the same things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the same things.
Yeah.
And I just said this last week or whenever it was with the spring game. Mm-hmm. And I reiterated it with the scheduling of the canceling of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
We've done it a certain way for a long, long time.
Sure.
Why not try something different? Because if you look at all the common things that happen during critical periods of history,
mm-hmm.
What's the saying, right? If it's important to know history so it doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah. And or another one is, hey, you can't expect to do the same thing and get different results.
So I don't understand why not everything, but so many things are met with pushback. We've conditioned ourselves in this age and era in which we need a voice, we need to be heard. I am people, hear me roar, where we have to have this, well, I need to be heard. I need to let you know what I feel about this situation. And I don't disparage that outside of the fact it would be cool sometimes if you just had as much information as you could gather. Maybe
sure.
Not all.
Sure. As much as you can get, though.
As much as you can get, and then let it rip.
Sure. No, I get that. I really do.
Because what happens is we parrot a lot of BS.
Oh, yeah.
We're having meltdowns about rescheduling, and we don't even get into going back to 2014 when this thing got pushed back the first time.
By Tennessee.
So, if you just start there, do you have that same energy?
I wouldn't.
I'm just
personally.
It's rhetorical, right?
Yeah.
I'm not. This isn't. You'll know when I want to slap wrist. This isn't a wrist slapping moment. This is okay.
Providing context.
Because I'm going. This is gonna get a little rockier before it gets a little better at Nebraska with trimming, because we always have
traditions.
Right.
We like our traditions.
And he kind of gradually has weaned away from it.
Mm-hmm.
It started with the little subtle funny things like, well, you guys have been this, and this. This is what you hired me to do. Just let me do it. Let me do my job.
Yeah.
Or this is what you signed up for with me. Or, hey, we've done a lot of losing. What are you guys going to...
Yeah, why don't we try something else?
Or I have to be careful what I listen to. We've lost a lot.
Sure.
Because a lot of the things that, in my opinion, a lot of the things that ail Nebraska, if we're honest, a lot of the things that ail Nebraska are controllable. They're from within. This whole one game, one score games and cursed and all this other stuff. I bristle up because I don't think we should let ourselves off the hook by just saying, well, I mean, it's always been that way. I just want to think it. I just want to think it. And it's like, okay, but that doesn't make it right.
Can I tell you what I think the real issue is? Why people like hold on so tightly to some of those things that don't seem to matter? I think there is a legitimate fear, and I don't know that many people would say it out loud, or I don't know that they would have even processed that this is what they're feeling. But I think this is a real thing, that there's a section of the fan base that doesn't actually believe Nebraska can get back to winning at the level that they want them to, and so they hold on dearly to the things from the time when they did.
I don't disagree with that.
I think that's a real thing.
But I think...
And that's really hard to overcome.
We're kind of still missing the larger point. This isn't just a fan thing. Mm-hmm. This is an athletic department thing.
Sure.
It's a media thing. Mm-hmm. It's a former players thing. Like, everybody has to kind of take a look and say, and just ask a simple question. Some people will just say, they'll just miss it and say, I have a job to do, or I'm this, so I'm going to free myself up to do this, because they don't really want to be accountable. Mm-hmm. And media may be different because they're not cheering for anything, I don't think. Sometimes it's, am I helping or am I hurting?
Yeah.
Like, what's the end game?
Right.
Just start there.
We'll continue this coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Live. Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live here on the Pillar Exterior stage. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla, and we are getting off into a good discussion here this morning about Nebraska and, who might have some thoughts on that.
Just in general, right?
Yeah, just fan bases in general, how we process things.
It stemmed from
Coach
Painter's spiel on Indiana.
But I do think people have made the correlation between Indiana basketball and Nebraska football before
100 times.
And I do think it's pretty close. Like, I think there's a lot of similarities there, which is why that particular sound clip is pretty interesting to me. But let's get to our old friend, the apostrophe, Michael Severe. What's going on, Michael?
I don't quite know, Ravi, if you would call me the apostrophe. I don't know if we know each other like that. I mean, you're Ravi, I'm Michael. You're going to the apostrophe. That's down deep, man. That's like I would call that in high school. I mean, wow.
You didn't tell me that when I started calling you that.
Yeah, literally, I just copy what DB does.
That was I told you then. I said, man. Well, then you moved on to the light skinned guy. Then we got all racial, and well, I'm talking about Indiana. I still have this hate for Indiana from 1987 Superdome. I'm still mad at them for beating Syracuse. Syracuse missing free throws. You bring me in now. I'm angry. What's going on, guys?
This is kind of interesting because I've worked with some non-minorities.
What?
And they've never been near as offensive to me as either one of you two. I think we need to look at that.
I mean, no one literally in the local market deserves it as much as you, DB. So just take it as love and understand it and accept it. That's how it works.
In typical Severe fashion. I want to start with the draft because I have some very difficult evaluations I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
First of all, rank Dart, Sanders, and Ward, and then I'll go from there.
Man, again, this is not. I said this before. It's 2011 all over again, right? It's a draft with a bunch of quarterbacks who are going to get pushed up, even though none of them really are evaluated by the scouts as truly high draft picks, and so we're in a difficult situation. I probably would go. I'm going to go Cam Ward 1 overall because I think he's gotten better at every level, and so my thing is maybe the next level he hits, he'll be finally a guy who doesn't have, a quarter of his throws turnover-worthy plays. So we're hoping that eventually he gets to that point. There's a lot of things I like about Shedeur Sanders. See you later, Logan. Have a good day.
See you, Logan.
My concerns sometimes with him, or like with a lot of young quarterbacks, is I don't quite know if I hate this phrase. I know Ravi does too, but I think he's really a guy that's got to be in a certain system, because he doesn't have much arm strength. I don't think he's overly athletic. There's a bunch of things about him that, hey, you know what? Maybe he's Brock Purdy. Maybe he is, which is not a horrible thing, right? And then Jackson Dart is such a wild card because that dude is a cross between every quarterback that I hated the last few years. You know, he's like a lock, and he's like all these guys that I just can't stand. But at the same time, the game has moved in the NFL to what he does, right? Take off running if he has to, has a cannon for an arm, could throw the ball all the way down the field. He's got all these abilities to do these crazy things that people are doing now in the league. So, but that would be my order. But it's not good, man. This is kind of sad coming off of all these great skill position drafts we've had the last few years, where this year we have few wide receivers who I like and few quarterbacks.
So, Michael, what do you do with like a Jalen Milroe? Who goes
running back?
Because he had a super weird season. Early in the year, it sort of looked like he was dropping dimes and like he'd really improved his passing. Obviously, he's was super athletic and has that ability to run around and hurt you with his legs. But then as the year progressed, I don't know if it's people got more tape on him or if he just fell back into some bad habits. His throwing sort of regressed back to where we'd seen it in the past couple of years. Like, what do you do with a guy like Jalen Milroe?
He reminds me so much of those guys who, yes, in a game situation, they'll make a big play because of their athleticism, but I can't trust a guy who, when other guys have on shorts and just a helmet, you know, or just in shells and can't make easy throws. You watch the All-Star game week where they show highlights of him. He was killing bugs on the field. He was hitting people on the sideline. He was bad. I mean, just easy throws they give you in those all-star game practices, you know, easy little Y sticks or like little bang eights. He couldn't hit them. And I know he makes a great long throw. I know he's a really good athlete. But I believe we saw a couple years ago a guy get drafted, I think, 4th overall with those same attributes. And I still can't figure out if that guy is a left-handed or right-handed thrower at times because of how ugly the ball has come out of his hand. So I think personally, yes, you draft him, you hope that he becomes Jalen Hurts, but you have in the back of your mind that he's a great athlete. If it's necessary, I don't mind putting him in another position.
Okay, so I wanna get to multiple things. So I'm gonna go rapid fire, and we're going to eliminate one as we go, so I can get to who you really like. You ready?
Yeah.
Matthew Golden or Trey Harris?
So I've liked Matthew Golden. You know, we do the Jet Award stuff. Back in Houston, he was a semifinalist a couple of years ago. Great return guy. I love great return guys who finally get their chance at wide receiver because when he touches the ball, he can go the distance. I probably would take Golden.
All right, Golden or Egbuka?
Oh, wow. Egbuka, he's going to be good. I mean, why? Because, right, every Ohio State wide receiver is good. I'd probably take Egbuka over Golden. He's got a little bit better route running ability.
All right, Egbuka or Jaden Higgins?
Egbuka. I think I would take Egbuka over Tet, who I don't think has any separation skills and scares the hell out of me when I watch the tape of him because I don't know if he can survive in the NFL. So I probably would take Egbuka over Tet.
All right, so Tet's out. So the only one left is Egbuka or Burden?
I think it's depending on where you're going to play him. If you're saying I'm drafting just a wide receiver, then I would say it's Egbuka. But if you're telling me you're drafting the next, and I hate to put this on him, but if the next Debo type where you want him to do everything, then I probably would take Burden because he has that ability to be that guy. I think he would. There's a bunch of teams that he would fit really well with in that utility role.
Maybe even the 49ers after they get rid of
would be
So
Emeka is your wide receiver one?
I think out of all those guys, he would be, just because I know what he got in terms of what he learned in college. I love his route running. And there is something about being there around all that talent like he was, and was really cool with them bringing in a freshman in Marvin Harrison who got more attention and more balls sometimes than he did, and he was still cool about that. I think he's a good person, and he comes from a great system, and I'd probably pick him one, yeah.
All right, I'm going to say this out loud and get it out of the way, and I'll ask you yours. You know, Woody Marks is my sleeper at running back, right? He's going to be somewhere 10 or 11th back off the board probably, but he's my sleeper. You got a sleeper for me before I have you rank these backs.
Man, it's so deep. He's not a sleeper. I think Marion Hampton is going to be incredible.
So, okay, well, so save him. Save him.
Yeah.
Save him, because he won't be a sleeper. Do you have a sleeper?
He won't be. I don't think so. I mean, I think it's 10 deep. This is the best running back draft we've had in terms of depth in, I don't know what, 10, 15 years, it's really deep.
What do you do with like a Scattaboo?
I put him in my system, and first I'd like to see what he runs. I'm kind of curious. I think he's got more top end speed that he's going to surprise people out a little bit, but I want to see what he runs. But I would run him as 49ers again, right? I think that what the 49ers do with their fullback position, no matter who's in there, I think that's the guy. You use that. Get the ball to him out of the backfield. He can block. Occasionally, he's going to be your running back inside the 5-yard line. I think there's a lot of things you can do with him.
All right, running backs, rapid fire. Ready?
Yep.
Travion Henderson or Caleb Johnson? Okay, I'll just let you. This is your show. Caleb Johnson or Quinshon Judkins?
I would take Judkins only because I think that dude's crazy. And I like crazy running backs. I like guys who are a little bit insane. I think he's a little bit insane.
All right, Judkins or Hampton?
Oh, Hampton. That's my guy.
All right, Hampton or Gianti?
I guess I got to take Gianti because of what he did, but I think Hampton's going to shock a lot. Kind of like the Gibbs and
well, he's going to be the second running back off the board. I don't think it'll be.
I know he is, but when Gibbs went second to the Texas guy, when he went second to him, there was it felt as a big gap. I mean, right now, do you think there's a big gap when you look at Gibbs and
John Robinson?
No, I thought Gibbs was. I thought Gibbs. You know how I felt about Gibbs. I was like,
no, I know you liked him, but
because I like Swift, and I was like, no, I get it. Gibbs is a game changer.
Yeah, I think there's a gap now, people think, and I don't think there's that big of a gap. Look at his broken tackle numbers, man. It's incredible.
He's ridiculous.
What do you do with Ollie Gordon?
I gotta know if he's really healthy. I don't think he was healthy last year based off of just watching him. Ollie Gordon kind of reminds me of a guy who is going to be before him, another Oklahoma State guy who came from Canada. I think he's going to be a good number 2 back, and when you need him, he could be a number 1 back. I don't know if over the long haul he's a guy that is going to give you 250 carries or 275 carries in a season.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Is any of these guys not in your top 5 that you think how you think the draft will go? Not what Michael would do, how you think the draft will go.
Okay.
In no particular order, I'll give you 6. You can kick one out. Shedeur Sanders, Will Johnson, Will Campbell.
Will Johnson's not going to be in the top. He's not in the top 10.
Okay, Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter.
I think those other guys are most likely are in the top 5.
Would you move Mason Graham in? Would you move Mason Graham in?
I think Mason Graham's a good one, but also I think there's a good chance that one of the tackles who we aren't talking a ton about right now is going to make his way into that maybe top 5. Depending on somebody says that's our one.
So not Banks or Banks?
Not Banks. I don't think it's going to be Banks. I think Banks actually I think when people got into his tape and saw that he kind of struggled and maybe he's really a guard, I think Banks dropped off.
You think Simmons out of Ohio State?
If he's healthy, you tell me he's healthy. Now, how long is he going to miss?
I don't know.
He's not going to be ready for the season, right?
Nope.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the big question there. You can't draft him. But I think in terms of who's the best one from what you see on tape and when they were in college, I'd say it's Simmons.
All right. Let's transition because we're getting ready. We're going to get back to this kind of spirited conversation about what is old is it really what's new and trying to move the program forward. How optimistic or reluctant are you about these traditions and what Nebraska's always done and trying new things to move the program forward? Are you just a let it rip guy?
Man, I'm not a fan, and I'm not really a fan of anybody. I was a fan of Ohio State growing up. I was a fan of USC as a little kid. I'm not a fan of anybody. I cover Nebraska. I hope they win, and it's good for everything. It's good for the Jet Award Foundation when it's good football happening here. But in the end, I've always thought the most overrated thing in terms of what we talk about is the top 5 things you have to do as a Nebraska program is the Nebraska way. I used to always joke about the Nebraska way. You have to have. We
thought about it. I'm like, I don't even know what it is.
The Nebraska way. I'm like, I don't need it. So listen, the food needs to be better, bro. Whenever we have chili and cinnamon rolls, I walk my butt or get in the elevator and go down and get some food, and the food's not good in the stadium. Okay, it's just not. And so that needs to be better. That can't be. People talk about wanting to help the fans by giving them better games with Tennessee. How about giving them something better to eat? That's what I care more about, the food aspect of it. But No, I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with dropping the Tennessee game. I really don't. I'm sorry for fans. But in the end, if you go 10-2 and you get into the college football playoff or however it works in terms of what's going to happen in 26 to 27, I don't care about if they played Tennessee or not personally. But I don't have a problem. I think you got to go and do whatever you got to do. It hasn't worked for 20 years. And I know there's some years where it did, but it hadn't worked for 20 years. So what do you do now? You got to change, right? You got to go a different direction.
You know what the Nebraska way was? Winning.
Walk-ons,
winning.
Keeping the same coach.
No, it was winning. That's the
it was winning. It was definitely winning.
All snarky severe is the best.
When people talk about the Nebraska way, like, they point to the pipeline and the walk-ons or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what fixes all of that, and we feel like we've got the Nebraska way again? Winning football games. We'll find a new Nebraska way with wins, I promise.
No, I agree, and everybody will be fine. That's the great thing about Nebraska fans, and I've noticed this since I've been here since 2002. I don't care what it is; they'll convince themselves that it's a good thing if you just give them a little bit of time. That's what hiring coaches. That's what making changes, doing. They will eventually say to you, "Oh yeah, that's right. It's perfect. It's the best thing we could have gotten done." That's what Nebraska fans do. And that's great. That's what fans do. They accept. They move on.
Tougher job as we talk today. Troy Dannen or Matt Rhule?
Oh, it's Matt Rhule. I mean, first of all, Troy Dannen's really good. I mean, it's kind of scary when you sit there, you listen to him. We were at the Outland Trophy, and he did a solid 7 minutes with no notes, and I went, "Oh my God, that dude is really good." But it's Matt Rhule because everything's against him, right? I mean, everything is. He's in this deep conference now with so many good teams. It doesn't seem like he can get number 1 or 2 when it talks about coming out of the portal. Maybe he gets the 3 or 4 guy, but he can't get the 1 or 2, which kind of hurts in a way. There's so much expectation here. It's crazy. People are already talking about if he goes 6-6 or 7-5, should he be on the hot seat next year? I mean, it's a hard job, and I wish him all the luck in the world. But I mean, if I was going to put some odds on, it's about 2 plus 230 that he survives.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to a lot of people. Like, I get to talk to some money people now and stuff, and I'm so surprised how disappointed they are over progress. I don't know what they expect. I don't get it sometimes, man. I'm like, dude, relax. He's got a quarterback going into his sophomore year, then his junior year. Talk to me after that guy plays those 2 years. Let me see what happens then. But they are just, man, people are haters, man. Haters. It's crazy.
Yeah, I wonder how much time of the year when you talk to somebody has to do with that, Like,
after the Indiana game, let me tell you, that time of year wasn't good.
Sure, I get it. Like, in football season is probably the worst time to ask that question. Not saying you, but, it's like the worst time to ask that question because you're in it and you're upset and you're disappointed or whatever. But I feel like by the time we get to July or August every year, everybody's pretty optimistic. Like, to your point about Nebraska fans, right? We kind of talk ourselves into everything. So I do wonder, like, how much when you ask that question has to do with how people feel about it. But I do, like, I don't know necessarily about what the money people think, but what, as somebody who is fairly objective about this, Michael, like, what do you see in terms of a measurable progress that Matt Rhule has accomplished over the last 2 years that if you were to go against the odds of him surviving, why would that be?
I think it's the culture that he's building. I know people don't love the C word, but I think you can really see it. And when you have a chance to talk to some of the student athletes, are they still student athletes? When you get a chance to talk to some of them, you can really hear the love they have for both Matt Rhule and the coaches and the program. And I think he's really helped that. There was a real negativity among a lot of guys, say 4 years ago, that I don't hear anymore when I get a chance to talk to the student athletes. But I think that's the biggest thing he's done. Plus, I think he's also brought the idea that you can once again compete in the Big Ten because of what happened in that game against Ohio State last year. And they got a lot of people going, well, you're only 3 points away from Ohio State or 3 points away from Iowa. All you got to do is try to get in the top 4. I think he's kind of brought that feeling that for some people, for some fans, that they're on the right track, which, I mean, remember how it felt in 2022, man. I mean, it felt miserable here, and I don't think the feeling's like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's our guy, Michael Severe, who I will not call apostrophe. I haven't earned it.
All right there, Lulla.
The best impromptu call ever, man. Always a pleasure.
All right, talk to you guys later.
Appreciate it, Michael.
It's funny. It's funny. He talks about the culture. It's number one. There's a couple things that I love. Number one, he's very protective of the brand. Remember, one of my famous rants about Coach Rhule was, I love the fact that all he wants is for people to be as
excited about
Nebraska and love Nebraska as much as he does. Like that's, and we have to remember, love doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want to do. It's actually just the opposite.
Correct.
Real love is, I want to discipline you and I want the best for you. So I'm going to probably do some things that may come across as a little...
And things you probably don't even want to do.
Things that come across as unloving.
Yeah.
But if I really didn't love you, I wouldn't care what you do.
I'd just let you do whatever you want.
Right. I just turn you over to yourself.
You see that with parenting all the time, right?
100%. So I like that. The other thing is, this is just yesterday. So there's a couple of guys that hit it. I'm just going to tell the story. So Donovan Jones he's got I think the fastest mile per hour right now.
Okay.
I think he hit 21.95.
Okay.
Caleb called last night. He's like, hey, if you come up, you're going to see my name scroll. I hit 21.92 twice. It's the second fastest of the winter. So I pause, and it's 8:30 or whatever. And he doesn't call just to. Yeah. First of all, he doesn't call. So I felt like that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, how you feeling? And he's like, man, life is good. He goes, my relationship with God is good. I love my teammates. He's talking about Donnie and Van Pop and some of these guys. And he said, school is good. He said, I'm out in front. So I was like, oh, I wanted to go back to the 21.92. I'm like, so twice now. He's like, Dad, this is him saying this to me. He's like, Dad, I got a lot of work to do. It came with a price. I'm a little sore the last couple of days. We got mat drills in the morning. I was like, goodbye. No, I'm dead serious. I'm gonna poke holes at me because I had to be honest, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, man, okay.
Yeah.
Holler at you, boy. See you this weekend.
Yeah.
I hung up. I thought about it for like 30 minutes because I'm flipping back and forth between games. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna ride with that because just earlier in the day, we were having these conversations about not believing the hype. Just go to work. Whether you're on staff, whether you're a player, just go to work. Like, that's just one thing. Move on. And the other thing is, when I said, what did I say you got to be able to learn to do, even if it's at your own expense, if you want to turn the corner as a team?
When was this?
You got to be able to cheer for your teammates.
Oh, yeah. Cheer for people.
You got to be able to cheer for people that do what you do. He couldn't have been happier for
Donovan.
Yeah.
Well, it's like what Matt Painter said. You want to see Mike Woodson succeed at Indiana.
It's like, and he's like, yeah, in the morning, this, that, and the other. There's a couple guys we want to get. It was just so other-centered, and it was exactly what his coach preaches. He says it to the staff. He says it to the players. Don't worry about what the past thing is. Worry about what the next thing is. Well, and he's already conditioned. He cut me off, like killed my joy, but he was right.
Yeah. You know what stuck out to me from that is, hey, the 21.92, that's not the end goal.
That's not the
win.
And he wanted to remind me, like, to move on.
Yeah, that's not the
win. I'm not even belaboring the point. I just want to go back and revisit.
The 21.92 might let you get to the win, but it's not the win.
And I said, I asked about a couple of guys. And one's not going to be very popular because the fan base gets mad at him. But I'm a big Hurrdat guy. And he's like, Dad, man, like
he's endured in some less than ideal conditions.
Like, he said he's so dialed, it's cool to watch because they hang out. And he goes, he really wants this to be a big spring because he finally feels good. Yeah. He's also talking about another guy that's in the secondary.
Yeah.
From a position
that could very well play some of the same snaps that he.
I'm like, there's movement up front. Listen, I'm telling you.
It's stirring. There's something stirring.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
you can't, you need a Van Poppel to go watch Tyson Terry.
Mm-hmm.
You do.
Yeah.
If you can do that and you can listen to the instruction that your coaches are telling you about insulating yourself from
outside noise,
praise and false gods and whatnot, you got a chance. I'm telling you, you got a chance.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. It's Hurrdat Sports Live. We've got our guy Brian Christopherson coming up next. Kicking off hour number 2 of Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by our dear friend Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. What's up, BC?
How are you guys?
We're good, B. We're just, moving right along here.
We got a little scouting report on you from Shafe yesterday that you might be a sneaky good sleeper pick in the media versus alumni flag football game.
Yeah, that would be false information.
He called you the plucky little underdog from, Omaha North, the mean streets of Omaha North. He said, don't sleep on BC.
Damon, you know that I went to North as part of the magnet school program, and I actually grew up in West Omaha. And hopefully Schaefer's reporting in other areas is better than the information he's passing on there.
Well, I think maybe we need some smarts on the team, get that magnet school energy going. BC, let's start with basketball for once. Obviously, tough loss against Michigan on Monday, and by tough, I mean one of the ugliest basketball games I've seen in a hot minute. What, in your mind, because DB and I had this debate yesterday about how many wins is necessary for them to get out of the last 3, like your gut, I'm not asking to be a bracketologist, what does your gut tell you about what they need in the last 3?
The 2 games at home, and then the cherry on top is if you went to Ohio State and you picked that one off. But you gotta handle business at PBA. And I like that Fred Hoiberg right afterward, as ugly as that game was for the viewer, was laying the groundwork for his team that, if you bring that defensive energy on that side of the court, you're going to make a few more shots and we're going to be fine and we will be playing in the postseason. He really spoke that message of positivity forward, even in like the 15 minutes right after that game. And I thought there was some good coaching psychology probably going on there. And it's true too. I mean, that's the calling card of this team. We know what they aren't. We know what they are. And when they're at their best, they play defense and have the energy that they had on that end of the floor against Michigan. So as disappointing as that result was, they got to bottle up. They got to bottle up the stuff there that was good and stack on top of that. And if they can win 2 games, I still think they're in.
So, Brian, can I make the argument to you that Nebraska's just not really about that life to win a game the way they played against Michigan? Because I think if you look at teams that consistently win games that way, they look different from Nebraska, whether it's their athletic profile, whether it's their overall toughness. Like, I look at Nebraska and I think, hey, that can be a pretty good defensive team. I don't look at them and say, hey, if they're keeping games under 55, 60, they're going to win very many of them. And if you kind of look through their wins across the season, that's sort of been true. Like I don't know if it's they just haven't been able to keep teams in that neighborhood, but I don't look at this team and I say, hey, they're built to win games. I know this is an extreme example, but they're built to win games like St. John's. I don't get that vibe from this team. I just don't know how plausible that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rare exception, the game we saw on Monday, obviously. They were 13-1 in games where they'd held teams under 70. And so I think, obviously when they're dialed in on that end of the floor and forcing looping passes and contesting shots, they're pretty tough in that respect. But I get what you're saying. They've got to have another guy or two really pick it up offensively down this stretch run. And obviously it was a tough day for Jawan Gary. He goes 2 of 13. The bottom line is if they're going to be in the dance on the bracket, he's going to have to be solid and give a little something more on offense. He played his tail off, I thought, on the defensive end. Actually had a +5 or something plus minus. But they're going to need more of him offensively. And then Essegian's got to hit some shots. I mean, their options are limited. We've gone over it all season. And at times, you guys know I've tried to talk myself into a certain player maybe being this or that, and I'm just beyond that now. It's but the two names I mentioned are players that on a given day, like Essegian has popped in 4 3-pointers or had a good game like at Washington that helped put his team over the top. So he's got to shake off that last miss. That was a big shot, obviously, but his team is going to need him to hit some other big shots down the stretch. And then so hopefully guys are feeding him that positivity too this week.
So I'm glad you brought up Juwan Gary, because he's kind of what I'm talking about here, right? Because there's a lot of guys, and I think it's more common than people realize, when you put in that level of defensive effort, just are not capable of then sustaining that on the offensive end also. So when I say they're like not about that life, I don't know if they're built in a way where they can expend that much energy defensively and still have anything left on offense for a team that sort of struggles there already, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know what's left in the tank for a guy like Juwan Gary when he does play defense that way.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, but the difference I'm talking about now is like you take your 2 for 13 and it's a 5 for 13. You know, something like that gets you over the top in some of these last couple of games. Andrew Morgan had a tough day offensively after he had the 8 for 8 on the road. I mean, there's some shots around the rim you just have to finish, and that's got to happen these last 2 weeks. I mean, there was this one you guys might remember it. Andrew got fouled and went to the line. It should have been an and one. You know, those are the buckets you have to have this time of year. Instead, he misses the layup, gets the foul, but then misses 2 free throws, and you kind of stack various scenarios like that throughout the game, and you're like, this is going to cost this team at the end. And so as much as we can talk about should Bryce have taken it to the hole himself and not dished off, I understand that's the attractive conversation to have, but there were like 5, 6, 7 possessions throughout that game where I was like, that's going to hurt later, and sure enough it did.
BC, all right, you're okay, right, real time saying what you think that this team is capable without feeling like you have to apologize for it, right? It's like, hey, they need to win 2 out of the next 3, or they've got to go 3 for the next 3. We're past the fact where they got to say, well, you know, just get the next one, right? We can have this conversations now with this team in totality of what the expectation level is, or no.
Yeah, I think we're close enough to the finish line. That's fair game, especially for us on the outside of the walls. I mean, the bottom line is they're probably like right in that last 4 in or just in front of it at this moment. And so it's hard. I mean, I understand if someone in January says, well, why are you bringing that stuff up? There's so much basketball to be played. It's just about this game. But for all of us that aren't inside those walls, I think that's the conversation right now. And this has been a program that, for the most part, has thrived at PBA. They have 3 losses there this year, but we know that it's been a good building to them the majority of the time, and that's how they got to finish it. And I know there's some guys like Juwan and Bryce who are going to be emotional as they play their last games in that arena. And so they have to do their best to control all that, control all the outside influences, whatever they're hearing, and just lock in on the task at hand. But I think the rest of us, let's have that conversation. They need 2 of these 3, I think. And then if you just want to be safe, you win 2 at least, and then you go to Indianapolis and you win that first game at least, and then you're feeling all right. So that's sort of the mission, I think, that's in front of this team.
So, BC, you win 2 out of 3 of the ones that are left. You get at least 1 in Indy, and you feel like you're in?
I think so. I mean, just again, we're going off a bunch of people who are guessing and bracket work, but when you put the metrics together, and I know the term soft bubble's it's like the most overused words right now in the English language, but it is a softer bubble, I think, that would allow Nebraska in if they did that. So first things first, you got to handle Minnesota. I know they're coming off 2 losses, but they've won 3 in a row away from their building. They actually play better when they're not in Minneapolis. And so, Nebraska, every game they're playing is big for Nebraska, but it's, Minnesota and Iowa. These teams are trying to make sure they're in the Big Ten tournament, so you got to remember the other side of the coin there. These guys got everything to play for that they're going against too.
BC, when are you paying any attention to what the rest of the conference is doing relative to where Nebraska needs to be? Or have you kind of settled on what you want this team to do, and that's just focus on where they are?
I've been tracking it because it's pretty interesting in the fact that, that sometimes we've talked about, if Nebraska does this, they can get a bye in the Big Ten tournament. And then, I'll look at it and I'll be like, yeah, but they're also like a a game ahead of like 3 to 5 teams where you could be like a 14 seed. There is that interesting, like, sort of sidebar conversation to me that's not NCAA tournament related about, like, what's your seeding going to be? What could those matchups be like for a game in Indianapolis that could be ultra important? And we saw, like, Penn State might not make it, but you could get a draw like that who could be potentially a bad matchup for you. So obviously you can't pick who you're going to play out there. But that's also why it's important, beside the obvious of winning a couple games to make sure you're in the NCAA tournament. You're helping your seeding there and perhaps your matchup in Indianapolis, which plays into the whole discussion.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. We were kind of having a larger conversation before you came on, BC, about kind of expectations and fans and how we perceive programs. I want to apply that for a minute to Nebraska basketball. Considering the expectations that were coming into this season, if Nebraska makes I'll call it a play-in game for lack of a better term, but the round in Dayton, how do you think that plays against fan expectations for this year?
I think it would meet a lot of the expectations. Honestly, when I went back and I posed the question before the season, like on our board, there weren't a lot of people that were picking this team to go to the NCAA tournament that were fans on our message board. And so I don't know if that is applicable to the fan base as a whole, but I wouldn't sense that everybody just thought they were necessarily going to pick up where they left off last year with a lot of different parts. Obviously, Bryce and Jawan are factors that have been around, but you're trying to figure out Berke and some of these guys and what their game is. So I think if people sometimes have to step back and be like, what was my actual thought process about this team when the year started? Would I be satisfied that they're in this position right now? And if you, just take my opinion. If you had told me with 3 games left in the regular season, hey, win the 2 at home and win a game in Indy, and you're probably on a bracket somewhere, is that an interesting season to you? I would have said, sign me up for it. Let's go. So I do think you heard some of that from Fred Hoiberg prior to the Michigan game. He was reminding his team and everybody else, I think, like, hey, you guys are playing for something. There's plenty of teams across this country that aren't. They're just trying to be a spoiler. And we've been in that role before, but that's not who you are right now. You are going for the same goals you had at the beginning of the year. And so I do think that's important for them to reinforce over there right now. If they played in Dayton, you'd have to embrace it. And it would be a fascinating thing. You guys know how much juice there is, like, even when, like, if Nebraska goes to the Big Ten tournament in down years and they win 1 game the first day, that night there's sort of like this, people are kind of floating and they're like, all right, let's go. Who knows what can happen? Mm-hmm. You can imagine if you went to Dayton and actually played well out there and won a game, there'd be so much energy about, okay, now what's next, and all that stuff. So there can be exciting stuff, even if it is an unconventional path put in front of Nebraska.
Hey, BC, let me ask you something, because you've covered all facets of this. You've had a pen and paper, you've done the typewriter, you still can use a recorder, and now you're kind of on a computer screen and a keyboard. When this was on the heels of Matt Painter was talking about the job at Indiana, and he was saying, that we get impatient and there's a lot that you kind of need to look at what the constants are on why things haven't succeeded to take a look at where you want to move the program. And I think Ravi made the point more than a handful of times that people have made the correlation between Indiana basketball and Nebraska football. And from a media standpoint, and we've seen it with the changing of the spring game and, busy Decembers and coaches being courted and, rescheduling series and alcohol to the state. Like, things are changing. And a lot of the old is not going to be the new for the sake of trying to better Nebraska. What role or roles do you think media plays in being progressive in thought if the old hadn't got us where we wanted to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you do have to have grace on both sides of it.
Okay.
And by that I mean I have grace for the fans who are of a certain age, who remember things a certain way. And college sports has shifted so dramatically, especially in the last couple of years, under their feet. It is hard sometimes, for me included, to get your head around it and be like, this is just so different from what I knew growing up and what I loved. And I'm trying to adjust to it, but it is difficult with this thing over here and that thing over there. And it just feels like so much change at once. And at the same time, that's paired with the fact that the program they love hasn't been elite, for a while. And so I think maybe if one of those things, if you had the elite aspect happening throughout this change, maybe that makes it a little easier. But, at the same time, those fans are trying to adjust. The program is trying to get back to a level that it's been a long time having been at. And so I understand where people just feel uneasy a little bit, like certain staples that have been in their life are changing. And me, guys, I didn't make the biggest deal about the spring game and they're not, probably changing and not being one. But I'll tell you what, when I was feeling sick last week and kind of thinking about it, I was like, man, I kind of missed some of that stuff that you did count on. Like, it was on your calendar. And I was a little feeling bad about it because I was starting to think about it from the fans' perspective and how much, even if it is sort of a mirage of a game, there's something to them that matters about that being something in their life that they've done since they were maybe 8 years old and now they're 40 years old. So I have grace for those people. And then at the same time, long answer long, I have that for Matt Rhule and the fact that what he walked into, we're not talking about how it's changed since he went to the NFL and it got different from that point. We're talking about how college football and the whole setup and how you want to operate has maybe changed since he came to Nebraska 2 to 3 years ago. And you remember the first thing when he got here, he's getting good advice from Coach Osborne and people he developed the program and these in-state kids are important and all this stuff that is. But at the same point, he's had to shift, I think, a little bit with his thoughts on the portal, and maybe you go a little heavier there. And then there's the 105 roster, and that sort of handcuffed how many people can have, and maybe change the way they have to in-state recruit, and all of those things. And so I have grace for that too. This guy, what he signed up for 2 to 3 years ago, it's completely changed now. And so if he needs to do something a different way, then maybe I would have thought maybe you don't have a spring game. You might have a good reason for it because things are so dramatically different now. So I think as a media person, before you type something dramatic or go with a hot take about the Nebraska-Tennessee game or whatever, you do need to process all the layers to it and also consider there might be some stuff you don't know quite yet that you still have to learn as we figure out where this is all going.
BC, can it be true that we shouldn't do things the way we've always done them just because that's the way we've always done them? And it also be true that we shouldn't change things just for the sake of changing them if we don't have a concrete, real reason for it? Can both those things be true at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like the spring game, I take Matt Rhule at his word and various reasons why he doesn't want to do that or showcase his players like there. But yeah, I think you said it well, Ravi. I mean, there's some reasons to do stuff, and there's you don't want to just change something and say, oh, we're not going to do it because it's been this way, and what has that gotten you? I mean, there are some things that are good from the past, and I think Matt Rhule understands that. Like, look at like the day-to-day stuff. I don't think they've changed. Like, he actually said, remember his Josh Pate interview last week, like he's doubling down actually on the process of like the stuff inside the walls and like the mat drills and like what culture building means. So I do think we have to be careful that we're not distracted by some of these shiny objects like the spring game conversation and say, oh, they're changing everything. When in fact, yeah, there are some changes outwardly that we're seeing, but inside the walls, I think he believes in his process, and they're going at it ×5 now. You know, that seems to be what he was saying last week. And so we got to balance that too, that yeah, there is change, but there's also some things that they're hitting just as hard as they ever have, and that they believe in, that they're sticking to, and they believe are going to come to fruition now with results. And so there's that part too.
BC, let me ask you something. On February 26th at whatever time it is, 8:21. Who has the tougher job, Troy Dannen or Matt Rhule?
Good question. I think Matt Rhule. It's not an easy answer though. Both have to navigate moving ground beneath their feet, and they both have to be able to make a decision and say, I believe in this, and whatever comes at me from it, whatever arrows there are, I'll take it, and I'm going to stand with this decision. And I think you saw that with Dannen last week with the Tennessee thing. He thought that was the best thing for various reasons for this program and this athletic department right now. And he knew he would take some hits for it, but he stood on it, and that's what you need from any leader right now. And I think he's a really sharp athletic director. I think if you talk around the country, people think he's one of the better minds in that field. And so I think they've got a good person in that chair. But I would say Rhule, to your question, just because there's just another layer. There's just more of a spotlight on the head football coach at Nebraska. There always will be. Every little detail gets put under the microscope, especially when we get to the season and like how you manage the clock and all these different factors. I mean, there's like 150 different things that a fan could think about to like critique Matt Rhule on, good or bad, and maybe 15 that they could think of Troy Dannen. So that I think they both have critically important jobs, but that's the reason why I would say Rhule. I think there's more stuff people can say, I have an opinion on this about Rhule because of this, than they could with Dannen, and that's why I'd say that answer.
That's our guy, Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, appreciate it as always. Good stuff, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, B.
Interesting stuff there.
That's pretty thoughtful.
There's a lot to climb into, but next we're going to talk to our friend Andy Kendeigh. I'm going to ask him how his back's doing. I'm doing a little scouting combine of my own for media people.
What if it doesn't come to fruition?
Well, I'll be prepared.
You're pretty sure it is?
Well, what do you always say? Another thing you always say. You'd rather be left with than without.
Yeah, I'd rather be caught with than without. Exactly.
I'm doing my homework on the front end, DB. We'll figure it out. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next. Welcome back halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We are waiting for our friend AK, and I'm guessing, this is my guess here, I'm guessing he's in his car, didn't want to be distracted by a cell phone, just like you should be. Eyes peeled, straight ahead, and focused. That's your job as a driver, to drive. Let's limit those distractions. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. And there he is joining us now, our friend from KETV, Andy Kendeigh. What's going on, AK?
What's up, boys? You have one of those mornings where you can't really understand how you can't get your head above water? That's one of those mornings.
Yeah.
Oof. You doing all right out there?
Oh, yeah, we're fine. We're good. Fired up for a Wednesday.
Went through one of those. We had 7 o'clock meetings at Westside for football, which means that Micah had to be there early, which means Zoe's bumped up by about 30 minutes. So I'm well aware of what you're talking about, AK. That was why I couldn't get out of the house fast enough. It was.
Isn't it funny how you get the kids just off, like 10 minutes off their routine?
Oh, it's a catastrophe.
Everything's spiral. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
all you have to do is set your alarm 10 minutes earlier and everything's better. But no.
A grade A catastrophe.
It is kind of funny how, like, when you're getting ready in the morning, everything is on, like, a razor-thin margin of about 3 minutes. No matter how early you get up, no matter what you have to do, if something takes 3 minutes longer than it's supposed to, you are deeply screwed.
No question. This morning is even thrown for a bigger loop because we got to be in Lincoln at 11:30 for assistant coaches today, which is going to be cool because we get to hear from them. But before that, I agreed weeks ago to read to my wife's classroom because it's Read Across America week. So, you can't say, well,
I would struggle.
It's tough to say no to the boss. And so, so you move that clock up, got to be there at 9. And then, you move everything backwards. You got to walk the dogs. My goodness.
What?
Dog's putzing around the neighborhood thinking like it's no big deal. She's like, come on, dog, come on schedule.
What grade are the kids in?
Well, I've got the kids this morning that I'm reading to are first graders, kindergarten, second grade. Yep.
Oh, DB, you can handle that.
Two different groups.
It's in my wheelhouse. But, I mean, that's right on my level, too.
That's what I meant. You can handle the reading comprehension part of it.
I'd sound just like them.
My wife goes, do you have a particular book you want to read? I go, just don't make it too hard and make sure there's pictures. And she goes, yeah, they're all like that.
At what age do they start reading like James and the Giant Peach and like the BFG? Older than that.
Fifth, okay. I think I would say fifth. I think.
Third, fourth, fifth grade. Yeah. Uh-huh.
For a while,
this is the wheelhouse.
When I first transitioned to online stuff, a lot of my passwords had to do with James and the Giant Peach.
Really?
Yeah. It's my top 3 favorite books.
Just a little random.
Yeah. Want another random?
Yeah.
I got this from Paradise too, but James and the Giant Peach was originally going to be about a cherry.
Really?
But he didn't think that cherries were squishy enough. Anyway, imagine reading James and the Giant Cherry. AK.
Hold on, before we get anything serious, I got to do my scouting report.
Oh, go ahead.
AK, I need to know, just in case this media versus alumni thing comes to fruition, how's the back going? Because I did mention you as one of the better athletes in the media pool, so I need to, if I end up being team captain for some reason, which I can't imagine why, how's the back going if I need to draft you? How we looking?
Well, I would not waste an early round pick.
Okay.
I would think that I could be good, effective in spot duty.
Okay.
So maybe a late round flyer.
Okay.
I'm still day to day. And so, depending on the day, I could probably give you a couple good downs, maybe a third down specialist type of thing.
Okay. Good to know.
So are you catching or throwing?
No, I'd be like a third down, like red zone specialist, tight end type of guy to go out and score you points. So yeah, I could handle that.
Got a little Anthony Beck to you or somebody?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure, I could do that.
I was gonna give you Ferguson, but he may be a little too athletic. I was trying to get to your Madison roots.
I'll give him an Altoon. Give him an Altoon.
Well, you said tight end type.
All right.
Although today Altoon may be a tight end.
Yeah.
AK, who
Altoon can throw it too.
Oh yeah.
AK, who are you most looking forward to talking to? Because I know who I would start with if I were you.
Well, not to talk to Eckler, but he's not on today, right?
No.
That would be the guy that
you wouldn't have any more time anyway. Your day would be shot.
Because I did see that they're limited to 10 minutes, right? So it's kind of like you give Eckler opening comments, you might have to put a clock on him, right? So I would think, I don't know, I kind of want to talk to Phil Snow.
There you go.
I understand.
There you go.
I mean, Phil Snow is the guy I really want to. because he's got years of wisdom behind him and his relationship with Rhule and what does he bring, what is his role per se, and that type of thing. I'm really curious to see what his take was on the 2024 Nebraska team and how the game has evolved. I like talking to the veteran guys who've seen just about everything. So that's probably the guy I'm looking forward to the most.
I'd be really interested to hear, and maybe you can ask this question, AK, feel free to steal it. I'd be really interested to hear how he processed through 2024 with being a consultant but not really being on staff versus how he expects his role to be this year.
Yeah, how it changes.
Yeah,
and how the transition to being in person and actually kind of running into the people that you kind of viewed from afar, and how does that work in 2025? I agree with you. I think that's a fascinating aspect to this whole role that he has, and I think he's one of the pivotal guys on this staff, no question about it. Especially in this new day and age of college football, where I think Matt Rhule, above all the guys on his staff, he's going to be really leaning on Phil Snow, to give him the basics and keep the fundamentals up to snuff with his guys, because I think that's one of the important things, because Coach Rhule is going to get told so many other ways that has nothing to do with the day-to-day X's and O's, and I think that's why a guy like Phil Snow can be and reinforce the basic fundamentals. And I think that's the fascinating change of where we're at in college football now as compared to 5 years ago even.
AK, Nebraska making a lot of changes in terms of protocol. Just think about how different things are from when you just started, when you got here, right? Whether it's alcohol sales or the renovations or the conference growth or whatever. Just pick one. No spring game. How are you? Do you think in 2 years we'll be closer to saying the more things change, the more they stayed the same? Or, man, glad we started to think about things differently?
Well, it depends on what aspect you're talking about. I do think the model is moving towards the NFL model, and the more the calendar shifts, I think we're headed that way. And I think Coach Rhule is ahead of the curve in terms of canceling the spring game, because I think in 2-3 years there's not going to be a spring game.
AK, is there? Oh, sorry, you cut out there for a second. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
If we gravitate towards more wins, which is always the goal, a better fan experience, right? Because we're forgetting about renovations and new food. We've got new contracts, and
maybe
it's
a little more room in the seats.
All of that. Again, it's like, because you run the risk when you try to get out in front of things and be different. You could get the the more things change, the more they stay the same, and you get that snark, or it's like, oh man, you know what? In 2 years, I'm glad that we made some of the decisions we made to play the long game.
I think they're going to be the latter. I think people are going to say, I'm glad we're playing the long game, especially with the stadium stuff. And I do think Matt Rhule is smart enough to know that this thing's evolving into the NFL model. These OTAs are coming. I think spring game is going to be extinct in a couple years across the country. It's just the way it's going. And with so much money involved with these players, I think that's where we're headed. But in terms of the stadium thing, I think you got to take some short-term pain in terms of the renovation for the long-term benefit of not just the fan experience, but the stadium structure as a whole. I mean, when I talked to Troy Dannen and he talked about how some of the stadium stuff that they have to renovate is over 100 years old, that kind of struck me. He's like, we've got to do some interior improvements that are things that haven't been changed in more than 100 years. Think about that for a second. He goes, before we do any exterior stuff, some of the interior stuff we got to take care of. So I think once we get past that, I think, yes, will it seem like more of an NFL stadium? Sure, but I think the whole aspect of keeping the college feel to it is going to be so paramount in this renovation, and I think Nebraska is smart enough not to lose that.
That's our guy, Andy Kendeigh of KETV. Andy, keep rehabbing that back. Let me know how it's going. We'll see what we can do in terms of a situational third down tight end for you.
And relay the message.
I'm ready.
She reached out yesterday. The huddle thoughts are coming.
Okay, sounds good. I will let Carly know. Thanks, buddy.
You got it.
Appreciate it. That's Andy Kendeigh, KETV. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and I'm reminding you there's another Omaha Supernovas match tomorrow here at home at CHI Health Center. Make sure you get to supernovas.com to buy your tickets. Let's see if we can keep breaking those attendance records. I like it when Omaha does cool stuff, and the Omaha Supernovas is about as cool of a thing that Omaha's doing right now. So make sure you get out there, support the Supernovas. We talked to Kendra Waite yesterday on a little hot streak. She enjoyed her
pretty cool.
She enjoyed her time at Creighton so much. She's like, you know what? Let's stay and play some more volleyball in Omaha. You can go out and see her tomorrow night with the Omaha Supernovas. It's supernovas.com for tickets. DB.
Yeah.
Doing? I'm doing all right. I'm
just okay.
Well, my guy Evan hurt me.
Yeah. Evan is pretty bright. He sent me a message yesterday. I had to laugh. He did a great screen grab.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What'd he do?
He was watching the Butkus Awards because it was on BTN.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and well, this will fit.
Okay.
I got to read it verbatim because you'll know this is very Evan-esque, and all I could do was laugh. He's already
pretty high up the list.
Yeah, he got bumped way
Do you guys text a lot?
No, it's just he texts late.
Yeah, okay.
But he already is buried by
everybody else.
He goes, he's watching the BTN deal, and he goes, lined up nice. Like he's
your hair?
Yeah. I'm like, who notices that? That's what my brother would say. Dude, I laughed. It was hysterical.
So he goes, he hits me up. He goes, hey, saying the names of the Gatorade flavors instead of the colors is wild.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that does that.
And then you replied, well, yeah, Evan is a lot closer to being black than you are.
He is.
I'm not denying that. He 100% is. And I go,
do you know the only one that I call by the flavor?
Which one?
Green apple.
See, and I've never even had that one because I don't like green apple stuff that much.
You're not very smart. It's hard to find, too.
I don't know if I've ever even seen it.
Yeah, it's hard to
find. That seems like a deep cut.
It's like green.
Yeah, green. Got that good.
Well, the kids say gang, but that's a whole nother.
Gangrene?
No.
Wasn't that the nickname of the Jets defense back in the day? Gangrene?
Yeah, but I'm not a Jets guy.
It's also a terrible, terrible disease. You don't want that.
Yeah. Is that still a thing?
It's not common.
Yeah.
But it exists. It hasn't been eradicated.
I watched another bad movie last night.
Of course, even some stuff that we did eradicate, like measles, is coming back, so that's cool.
Arguably. I'm in one of these things where I just haven't been able to sleep. And
is it worse than that series you watched the other day?
Oh, it's equally as bad.
Okay. What was it?
It was called Renegades.
Oh, no.
And it was about like these 4 old Army buddies that like exacted revenge on one of their buddies that got killed.
Oh.
And
was this one in Russian too?
No, but like Danny, is it Trejo?
Yeah.
He was in it.
Okay.
So you kind of know.
The machete.
Yeah.
The type of movie we're talking about here?
Yeah, but he was like the go-to. He was like the plug. He wasn't a main guy. Like he actually bowed out of the revenge portion. They tried to recruit him, and he's like, nah, I'm too old. I can barely walk. But he was the one telling all the secrets. It's really bad. I was hitting fast forward 10 seconds about every 4 minutes.
Dude, what are you even doing?
I didn't have anything else to watch.
All right. I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
Well, I had already watched
on the streaming platforms.
Yeah, but I just kept checking to see if Paradise was ready to go, and I think tomorrow
wasn't yet.
I get the new Reacher.
How many times have I told you just go watch Ted Lasso? Just go watch Ted Lasso. It'll make you happier.
He's on my algorithm.
It'll make you happier.
Everybody says so. So the only one I'm listening. No disrespect to you. I'm not listening to you when you say I would like Ted Lasso. I'm kind of more vibing with Coach Frank because he's like.
Well, you know me and Coach Frank, we're like two peas. So
that was very odd that night.
He's always liked me. Every time that he,
I don't get it. I don't.
Every time
he doesn't like that. That's not his thing. I don't get it.
Every time I'm at Westside, he comes over, he finds me, talks to me like.
Yeah, you know what it is?
What?
I'm telling you. You're like the guy, and I've given this example to the contrary to you personally, not on air.
Okay.
You're like the guy that got a tryout, and you were touching like 97, 98. But like, I mean, just having the workout of his life. Yeah. But normally, like, tops out about 88, 89.
Come on, like 91. Come on.
You know. Coach Frank gets you and you're like humming. I'm like, he doesn't throw like that.
Sometimes I do, though. Sometimes I do.
You know,
you keep showing up every day.
It's tough. It's tough.
Okay. Speaking. Okay, this is super weird, right? So speaking of throwing, and got my mind thinking about baseball, right?
Coming up.
Could I make the argument to you? I send you these Greg Maddux videos all the time, right? Because I'm fascinated by him. Could I make the argument that Greg Maddux and Tony Gwynn are essentially the same versions of each other, just one's a pitcher, one's a hitter?
Yes.
That hit me yesterday.
The greatness of Tony. You want the greatest Tony Gwynn stat of all time, and there are several.
There's a lot of them.
So, you know how many years a decade is, right?
That would be 10.
So in the 1990s.
Oh, I know this one.
How many times?
188.
Correct.
That's how many times he struck out in the entire decade.
In the decade. Do you know what his career batting average was against Maddux and Pedro?
No, I know it's 306 against Randy Johnson. I would imagine it's somewhere.
What is Tony Gwynn's career batting average against Greg Maddux and Pedro Martinez? It's 126 ABs, so it's a pretty good.
It's a good sample size.
Correct.
I think it's higher than the Randy Johnson number.
First of all, let's just start with strikeouts. How many strikeouts? And 126 at bats.
It's under 10.
Okay.
6.
It's under 6.
4.
It's under 4.
2.
It's under 2.
0.
0.
Oh my God! Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
What'd he hit?
323.
Yeah. Right. 396. I'm just saying.
It's so dumb.
He's ridiculous.
So I was watching a TikTok last night that was it was a story about Tony Gwynn where, and this is where it clicked for me, is just their knowledge and their ability to kind of predict and game out what was going to happen based on prior experience and how they knew other people thought about the game. Mm-hmm. So he was up at bat and there was a horrible rain delay. The game got postponed until tomorrow. There were 2 guys on base, but since it's a rain delay, they have to pick the game up exactly where it was. So he knew the same pitcher was going to be out there. He knew the situation was going to be the same. He goes in the clubhouse and he goes, "Hey, first pitch tomorrow, this guy's going to throw me a slider away. I'm going to hit it oppo into the gap for a double. Both runs are going to score. We're going to tie the game up at 3. What do you think happened? That exact thing happened. Yeah. Like that level of it's a savant thing at that point.
He was. I'm a huge fan. Would you take Tony Gwynn in 2024?
Absolutely, I would. 100%. I get he doesn't fit the eye of what people value now.
He would totally debunk analytics.
He would. There's actually a guy right now that I'm sort of excited about for the Rays, the super fast dude, the prospect that scored 104 bases last year.
Because
I think he can break some of the analytics.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting when
he's going to slug about 200.
Yeah, but he's gonna. So he
but he's gonna get on and he's gonna steal second.
And he knows what he's good at.
And it's like a double.
And he knows what he's good at, right? So he does basically the Willie McGee thing where he chops that thing into the ground, and he can beat out every single ground ball, even if it's to second base. And he hit somewhere in the mid 300s last year. All but 8 of his hits were singles, but then he had 104 stolen bases.
Death, taxes, and the Rays being better than.
Being ahead of the curve analytically?
Yeah.
100%.
I don't know if they can reset this clock, though.
I don't either.
Although athleticism has returned, and you do have pizza boxes now for...
I do. For the bags, yeah. So it's going to be easier to steal bases and translate that into the major leagues. But I like when... This is the thing we were talking about with the NBA the other day. I like when there's...
Way, in case you're counting, the Dodgers got drubbed again in preseason.
You know what I'm really excited about?
What?
This former Dodger, Walker Buehler, going to start on Sunday for the Red Sox.
I'm going to be cheering I'm a huge
Walker Buehler guy. That's honestly, I know that Crochet got all the buzz. The flyer on Walker Buehler is maybe the thing I was most excited about the Red Sox did this offseason.
My brains out.
I'm very excited about Walker Buehler.
I will tell you have to be careful in Fenway.
Sure.
Because when he gets touched,
it goes.
It leaves the yard.
Yeah.
But...
I think it's a good flyer, though.
When he's going,
there's not a lot of guys.
He's as good as almost anybody.
Yeah, there's not a lot of guys better than him when he's throwing well. Much like me touching 98 when I talk to your friends.
Coach Freund in a 98-mile-an-hour tryout.
You know, I'm like that.
$1 million arm.
Really?
Oh, my bad.
I was going to go Dennis Quaid in The Rookie, and you hit me with $1 Million Arm.
I don't know why.
Now, what's the difference between those two movies? You think I remind you of John Hamm? I'm just saying. I get all the hate for being a little insensitive. Hits me with $1 Million Arm. I don't know if you know this.
Huh?
My last name's not Patel. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We got Mitch Sherman coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Live. Ooh. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Mitch Sherman. What's going on, Mitch? How are you?
What's up, guys? I like those cutout faces on your desk there that I can see on YouTube.
Yeah, see, Mitch, you're gonna be part of the deal because the ones I try to keep it. We're growing our new stash, and it's the ones that our listeners like. So we've got to get you. We've got to get Ben McLaughlin.
We need Tim. Gotta get Tim Verghese on there.
And Tim.
Yeah,
those are probably like
top 3.
So in the next couple of weeks, Mitch, I'm gonna try to find a picture that you approve of. I don't want anybody mad at my man Terry who does these, but. Yeah, Mitch.
Those are nice. Those are really nice. I couldn't ask to be there with that duo. So if you're going to expand it to like 10 people, then, I'd feel bad if I wasn't part of it. But that duo right there is iconic.
So he puts up a couple different guys every day, depending on what he thinks we're going to talk about, or gals. I think Jess is on there. We've got a couple other
Danny
ones.
Busman Kelly.
Yeah, we had DBK on there.
Yeah.
But no, so he'll switch them out kind of based on the day and what we think we're going to talk about. So there's he's got probably 50 of them. There's a ton of them.
So today we went with these two guys because we talked to Severe just about the draft, and one thing we're going to talk to you about, like change, like not to go all Sam Cooke, but if a change is going to come,
thought we were going to go Tupac.
How will it reveal itself in wins, and then kind of Coach Rhule, because he's kind of the catalyst for wanting to do things differently now. So I guess we'll start right there with, and I'm full disclosure, I'm not saying these two things are the same thing. Ravi gets mad at me, Mitch, because I throw the no spring game and Tennessee in the same bucket. He gets mad at me because they're vastly different things, and I acknowledge that. But what I am saying is, Nebraska appears to be doing these things now, whether it's alcohol sales, stadium renovations, food, the spring game, wanting an advantageous schedule. These are all things that seem, this is funny, but they all seem like what's best for just the program and not necessarily always thinking about others first. Eventually, Mitch, whether you agree or disagree, are you okay with trying to move the program in that direction, considering what we've always done hasn't yielded the results that we've wanted either the last handful of years?
Yeah, I think some of it, I think you could categorize it as Nebraska's not thinking necessarily about what its fans want. Like, because if you're going to put the food thing in there, like the food isn't doing anything well, it might make them more money. So I guess in a roundabout way, it does help the football program win. But I think what Nebraska's doing here with all of these things, and the one way that you could connect it, like, is there a thread between everything that you mentioned? It's like, okay, stay with us, have faith in what we're doing, and we're going to repay you not by making a fun experience or a better experience or the experience that you might necessarily want in the stadium on a particular day, whether it's in the spring or the fall, but we're going to repay you by putting all of our energy into winning football games. And that's what it's going to be, because isn't that what the fans ultimately want? And I think more and more so, yes, that's what the fans ultimately want. Like, I think it's starting to supersede everything in ways that we didn't even realize were an issue in the state of Nebraska. Like, you can go to things in recruiting where it's like, there might be some things happening as a result of a reduced roster size in recruiting that Nebraska fans would have would have taken issue with in the past, but they're not now because or at least they're not in large numbers or vocally now, because they're wanting to buy in to what Matt Rhule is doing and what Troy Dannen is doing, to point all of their resources in a direction to say all of this other stuff, like, it's fine, but what we're doing is we're trying to win football games. We're trying to get to the college football playoff. And if they can produce in that way, then everything that you see that's happening that might be outside of the box for Nebraska will be worth it.
So, Mitch, let me ask you the question then, because my next thought when we have this conversation is, okay, how fast do the wins need to come to justify the changes? Because if you're taking things away that theoretically the fans like, whether it's the spring game or whether it's just a certain level of nostalgia and tradition that they've become accustomed to.
Degree of difficulty of home non-con games.
Sure, yeah, like scheduling a premier non-conference home game, whatever the thing is. How long does Nebraska have for that to translate into wins before you're like, okay, well, we don't have our traditions and we still don't have the wins. Like, what's the point?
It has to happen very fast. I don't think that's my initial thought, is like, it has to happen right away. Not that you have to be in the playoff in 2025, but you have to win more games than you did in 2024. So I'd probably amend it from, like, it has to all happen very fast. Like, they're not going. That doesn't mean they have to go undefeated next year, but you have to see progress. You have to see more wins. Like, it needs to be a bigger number on that line next year. It has to incrementally grow up, because people just aren't patient. Even when you're not taking things away, people aren't patient. And I've kind of had that thought go through my head this year, watching what's going on with Nebraska basketball. Like, last year, Nebraska basketball made the NCAA tournament for the first time in a decade, and now this year, they're in a position to do it again, which hasn't happened in more than in 30 years at Nebraska for the program to go back to back. And yet people are unhappy with what the product looks like, even if it produces the desired result of making, because at Nebraska, until you win in the NCAA tournament, like, the goal is let's get there. And that's great. And, like, you would trade anything just to get to the tournament. But here we are 1 year after Nebraska got there, and people are like, no, that's not enough. You got to look pretty doing it, or you got to do it this way, or you got to beat this opponent. So my point in bringing that up is that people just aren't patient. And that applies probably even more so to football. So yeah, it's like, you made a bowl game this previous season. People were happy. Like, you just wanted to get to a bowl game. Well, that's not going to be the expectation. That's not going to be the bar in the next year, because you've done that once. And, like, what the people want, like, it goes up surprisingly fast. Maybe it's not surprising, but to me, it's a little bit surprising. Like, they don't just want a little step; they want, like, a pretty good sized step the next year.
Mitch, we played a clip from Matt Painter, and I think it's 2 minutes. I'd love for you to hear it, but I don't know if I want you to sit 2 minutes either. But there was this portion where we were comparing Indiana basketball to Nebraska football. That comparison gets made quite a bit. And Painter was talking about, take a look at some of the common denominators on why things haven't worked. Like, that's kind of a key component sometimes when you're trying to bring a program back. So I ask you this, as somebody that's also in the media, that has had to change a ton, right? Well, you've had so many other good things you did in between covering Nebraska, but you've had to evolve. The media's relationship with the sport it covers has had to evolve. Your job isn't to cheer or champion the program necessarily either. Is there a role that you think media can play to help Nebraska get over or cure some of the ails of the past outside of just winning football games?
A role that media should play. I mean, I think media have to just kind of understand their jobs. And like you said, it has changed a lot over the years. I do different stuff day to day than what I did 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Less pushback on your opinions today, or let's say 6 years ago?
From the fans, or from the inside? From fans? Probably more so than I did 6 years ago, but
is that because
that
accessibility?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's because of social media and there's more outlets for fans to be able to express those opinions and beliefs. And people just, I think today, like feel more empowered to do that. They think that it makes a difference. And in some ways it does. Like, I want to cover the athletic department in a I want to be responsive and give people what they're looking for, at least with the type of content, not with like the opinion that I have that's gonna be genuine. I'm not sure how to answer that otherwise. Like it's evolved, it's changed. Like there's a different dynamic that exists today than did anytime in the past. Like it's kind of always changing. But our role in the media has been and continues to be to just kind of try to call it like we see it.
It's interesting as someone I would consider a higher level thinker. That
might not have been high level.
With more that's on the responsibility plate, or the degree or difficulty or how choppy the waters are to run college athletics, has that changed your volume of grace, or do you still are you still kind of like, how has that changed as you've had to take in more things, more variables that they're dealing with versus how responsive or responsible you need to be?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think part of it just comes with like getting older and getting more experienced and having experienced in seeing everything in the world and in college sports. And there is a level of grace there. Like it's not easy. People want college sports to be fixed and be right and everything in symbiotic and working smoothly, and it's just it's not going to happen anytime in the near future, because it's a difficult thing to control and to keep to have run efficiently.
Do you have
to try to understand that?
Yeah. Do you feel like you need to expand your base?
Always trying to do that. Yeah, always trying to reach new people that I haven't connected with. Always trying to push the envelope with different kinds of content that can find a new audience. Absolutely. I mean, that's what my company at The Athletic wants. Like that's how we grow. 100%. Like if you're not, I mean, it'll sound like a cliche here, but like if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards.
So I was at an event in Fairfield this weekend, and some of the players that were there were Jalen Gramstad, Luke Lindemeyer, Carter Nelson, and Bodie Suckup. And some of the old heads that were there, it was kind of a Q&A period. And some of the prevailing thoughts are obviously centers around NIL and kind of knowing how much another guy makes and managing pockets and whatever else. And I thought one of the answers from the players was interesting because, and I know people hate the culture word, Mitch, but one of the guys was a former small college offensive lineman. And he was saying, if my quarterback makes X amount and I'm doing this, like that would kind of rub me the wrong way. And the guys were basically saying, you look at a guy like Luke Lindemeyer, who's sitting next to Carter Nelson, they couldn't be more different, right? Luke was his grinded and worked and progressively gotten better. Carter Nelson was a 5-star recruit, 4 or 5-star recruit coming out of high school, highly touted, but they all rode together, right? Jalen and Bodie are competing for roster spots, but they all rode together. So I looked at those guys. I'm like, well, that's kind of a microcosm of how you want it to be if you're right. It would be easy for Luke to look at Carter and say and feel some type of way, but they apparently don't. How much of that do you think is sustainable? How much of that do you think is like, well, you got to recruit the right guys, or at some point it is going to be an issue? We just don't know it yet.
Yeah, I think at some point it's going to be an issue, and it might not be with that group of 4. But it might be like if you put yourself in that position, Damon, I'll turn the tables on you, and you go like if this stuff all existed when you played, and you had 5 or 6 running backs, and like whatever the pecking order changed throughout the season, so the dollar distribution was out of whack, and the guy who was 5th on the depth chart was actually getting a much bigger check every month than the guy who was out there putting his body on the line. Like, even if you were all buddies and friends and hung out off the field, there would probably be a little bit of resentment. Like, that's just natural. It's the way it would be. It's the way it would work in any line of work. Like, if I'm in my line of work, same thing. Like, if I'm carrying the whole load and like somebody else is, getting the reward, like it's gonna get under my skin a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you can smooth that over. You can make that palatable because everybody's in it for a bigger goal. Everybody's in it to make the organization succeed. And I do think that they have that. And that's part of what Matt Rhule has improved. That's part of what he's worked hard to implement at Nebraska. And when they send this duo, this foursome out on the road, like those guys are going to say the right things. And I think for the most part, they're going to mean it. But there's also probably going to be some time, like let's say Carter loses a fumble in a big game and, Lindenmeyer is standing there. Like, is the thought going to go through his head like, man, that guy's making da-da-da-da-da-da-da? Yeah, like it's human nature. It doesn't mean like the team's going to collapse the next day, but like people are going to have some hard feelings or there are going to be this new dynamic that exists in the locker room. Like it's been there in pro sports. That's kind of what I lean back on a little bit too. Like, we've professionalized college sports, and pro sports have worked through the decades with like pay discrepancy and jealousy and things like that exist inside the walls of the team. And so you're bringing that to college sports, and they'll figure out a way. They're younger, they're not as mature, but like they're going to figure out a way to make it work. And it certainly helps to have good leadership at the top. And if it doesn't work and one guy's a bad apple in the middle of it, well, there's the transfer portal, and he's probably going to go that direction.
Yeah, Mitch, I'm glad you brought up pro sports, because as we're kind of talking through this, I found myself thinking, like, are we making maybe a little too much of it? I understand people hold out and have, contract demands and they want to renegotiate and stuff like that. But I don't get the sense that in game, a wide receiver is sitting there on a minimum deal like, let's say Puka Nacua or whoever is on his rookie deal and he was drafted late, so he's making a league minimum, and he's looking around the room and seeing literally everybody makes more money than him and being like, oh, I would have caught that ball, or I would like, I don't get the sense. Maybe it does happen. I don't know. I haven't been in those locker rooms, but outside of the like contract negotiations and holdouts and stuff like that, it doesn't really seem to be an issue.
You know what it would boil down to? I'm just listening to you guys. And
it probably is.
You know what I would think, especially, so there's 2 instances. I'll give you one football and I'll give you one like current day or recent business. You asked about the 5 or 6 running backs, so I immediately thought, and my answers you're kind of describing that is, number one, I don't know if somebody would make more that wasn't productive, but let's say they did. For me, I'd say it would matter how much we were winning.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would think. Well,
but that's a culture thing, right?
Are we winning? The other thing is like on my job, I can think of one, Mitch, in the last handful of years. I used to do an endorsement for a company, and one of my little guy, Micah was really young, so sometimes I'd either have to bring him with me or I would have to reschedule. And I got along with the guy that worked at this entity really well. Like, we're friends we'll text to this day. And over a handful of years of having this endorsement, it went to Josh Peterson in the afternoon. And I immediately in my head, at no point, I'm just being honest, at no point did I think, ooh, I'm mad. I felt like, oh, he really enjoys this. He's there all the time. He's getting better. Like, that's pretty cool. I don't know if, like, that's the honest, I never even thought to myself, wow, like, you guys weren't even going to tell me? It just seemed, in my opinion, to make more sense. Do you think that's a maturity thing, or do you think that that's something that can be established culturally where you just assume, hey, quarterbacks make this, left tackles make this, rush ends make this. Like,
yeah, it's all of the above, I think. I mean, I do think it's a maturity thing. I think it's a personality thing. Like, not everybody would have that approach that you did in either one of those situations. And if you have 105 guys on a team, like, you're gonna have a wide range of people who react to every situation in different ways. So there will be players in every locker room in college football who are reasonable about that conversation, about that whole landscape of pay and discrepancy in pay. And then there will be others in every locker room who, don't see it that way and don't act in a mature manner. And that's just part of it. Like, you're going to have that again, like in any workplace. What you want to do and what you aim to do with your culture and what you aim to do, I think, as a coach in that spot, is to minimize that second category. And you look for those kind of guys when you're recruiting them. And that's hard because of the portal, and you have such a limited amount of time to be able to get to know players when you're recruiting them in comparison to the work that you do when they're in high school. But at the same time, like, they're more developed individuals generally, and they've already been in some kind of a similar situation. So you should be able to get a good read on him, that where if you're recruiting a high school kid and you get to know him when he's 16, they're going to change a lot between the time they're 16 and they're 21 or 22. So you may be getting to know someone who's completely different 5-6 years later. It all underscores, like, the need for a head coach, I think, to just be moving more and more and more in that direction of being a CEO. And Nebraska's fortunate that it has somebody who embraces that role. Whether he likes everything about it, he embraces that role. Yeah, there's still coaching that's involved in being a head coach, but there's so much more to the job, and a big part of it involves this stuff that we're talking about here. And of course, you need to have the people around you who can help you in both of those areas. And I think that's a big part of what Nebraska's worked to do this offseason.
All morning, I've been kind of asking the question, who has the tougher job on February 26th, Dannen or Coach Rhule? And I'm going to ask it to you a different way. With the adults in the room, do you think, on a similar scale of what you're describing, because you talked about maturity and age, that Dannen will have to, at some point, or currently is dealing with that from sport to sport in terms of revenue distribution? Do you think baseball and basketball and volleyball and football? So we're talking the adults now dealing with monetary differences. You think that that's something internally that he manages, or it's understood, or that it's kind of set with how he's doing business? Because
I don't think it's set yet.
Okay.
I don't think it's set yet. I asked him on the day that Danny Busboom Kelly was introduced at the Devaney Center. After the press conference, I pulled him aside and asked him about revenue share for volleyball, because that Nebraska is going to do it different than about 98% of the programs out there in the country. But I wanted to know if I wasn't looking for numbers, like, or a percentage, but I wanted to know just how much they'd thought about it, and if he knew what they were going to do yet with the way that they distributed revenue to volleyball. Because on like some of the national models that you see out there, it falls into the category of like 5%, along with every other sport in the department that's not football or men's or women's basketball. And that Nebraska's not going to do that. Like, there's going to be a bigger number, but he just said they're going to be competitive. They're going to be beyond competitive. They're going to paraphrase him, like, they want to set the market. So if you do that, like, that takes away a little bit from another program. I think he's just going to have to be transparent. I think he's just going to have to be upfront with his coaches about how they're distributing all of that. It's probably going to have to be a fluid conversation. What if there's an All-American or a national champion on your track and field team, which there are?
Which is, yeah.
What if there's a national champion on your wrestling team and he's coming back for another year? Don't you have to give him a cut of rev share? Or, but if you do that, you might be doing that at the expense of a 5-star volleyball player or a 4-star football player. Like, I think football's got to be kind of untouchable in this. Like, they're going to get their percentage, and then you work everything else out just because it makes so much revenue for the department. But yeah, it's a tough job for an AD, and I think he just has to be open and have like consistent communication. And then they also have to know that there's NIL there too to supplement some of it. So if you can't pay somebody in rev share because of the sport that they play and what you have assigned to that sport, you have to be more willing and open to be able to go there and supplement it with the rev share. And, that's where you can maybe separate yourself from some of your competition. The number is set on what you can pay total as a department with rev share. It's not necessarily set on NIL. If you can raise more money, you can pay more money.
That's our guy, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic.
That's fantastic.
Mitch, great stuff. Real quick, I know you're a big baseball guy. We were having a weird discussion before you came on. Favorite random 90s baseball player?
That's easy.
Easy. Random.
Yeah, you can't give me like Griffey or something. Like, give me a rando.
Well, your Rolodex is huge. I mean, no pressure.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
By me complimenting him.
Yeah, there's a lot of names going through my head. He's still playing in the 90s. One random guy was a great player. Yeah, he played in the 90s. I'm going to go with Brett Saberhagen.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
His heyday, like where he
but he had
was in the 80s. But I have to go with the Royal. Like I mean, if you ask me that question and I have like a lot of time to think about it, I'll probably come up with some people who weren't Royals. But just when you mention baseball, like Royals are going to come into my head. So, yeah. How about I don't know. I'll just go with Saberhagen.
Thank you for indulging me, Mitch.
Danny Tartable. How about Danny Tartable?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Can I toss you a Joe Randa, early 2000s?
Sure. We can always talk about Joe Randa. I'll amend my answer to Danny Tartable.
Oh, that's a
Mitch,
good one.
Appreciate it.
Nobody wore 45.
Appreciate it
as a muscle-bound dude like Tartable.
We'll talk to you later. We appreciate it, Mitch.
Thanks, Mitch. A smart dude.
We'll have more Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next. Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. Our friends at Centris have you covered. It's weather's getting warm outside. Maybe you're like, hey, I might do a little car shopping over the weekend. I know DB needs to.
You're talking to me.
Got to go get it figured out over there.
Your boy is stressed.
You know what you got to do before you hit the car lot? Hit centrisfcu.org to make sure you got your auto loan figured out so you can go in with a little negotiating power. You don't want to be at the mercy of the dealership. Go to Centris FCU, talk to one of their experts, and get the help you need before you hit the car lot. It's centrisfcu.org, federally insured NCUA. Do a little crossover here?
It helped me shopping with my mom the other day.
Yeah.
I found, I'm not going to name the grocery store because they're really, really good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back to the old neighborhood because I had to take my mom. And why you want to be able to pit one against the other, like competition?
Mm-hmm.
Beef is expensive right now.
Yeah,
it's getting ready to hit all-time highs. And I saw a price per pound for some chuck, and so I was kind of staring. And I watch Meat Dad on TikTok, and so I'm looking for a part of the chuck that still has the eye still in it. And the guy was super cool. He's like, "Hey, what are you looking for?" And I'm like, "I can't get over this price per pound. Right? It's $3 less than it normally is." And he said, "Yeah, we had to match because of another place in town." And I go, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, what are you looking for?" And I said, "Something that still has the eye." Like I wanted the good part too.
Yeah.
Don't you know that son of a gun went and cut one? He said, "Hey, I'll keep the same price. I'm going to tip of the cap to the knowledge base."
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I said, "Hey."
He's looking out.
I said, "I can't take credit. I follow this guy on TikTok."
Meat Dad?
He taught me how to, Let's go. This guy's lost like 300 pounds on the carnivore diet. But anyway.
Let's go, baby.
Having the power of negotiation with like a credit union, and you don't want to give all the power to the dealership. You're right.
No, you can't do that.
Say, hey, this is what Centris said they could do for me.
So we're going to start there because I got my own money. When you come in with your own money, you got a different level of power over the situation.
Oh, that's a great pull by KP.
Who?
Apier.
Kevin? Kevin Apier?
I like the delivery because he would hide the ball behind his
Angels and Royals, great. He did have
Are you going great?
Well, no. He had a tough labrum injury, though. Killed his velo a little bit.
He'd hide that.
He did. He keep that thing back behind his. Although somebody mentioned Bernie Williams. Bernie Williams is too good to be a random.
Yeah, he's not a random.
Are you finally something negative about David?
Oh.
Everything David says, Ravi loves. DJ finally let you down.
I mean, if he's a Yankees fan, we're gonna have longer conversations. But no, the Bernie Williams is too good. If you want to go like a random Yankee, you got to give me like a Shane Spencer.
It's a good one.
Scott Brocious is a little random. He had the one really good year,
And he got the nickname from Berman.
yeah,
Super fragilistic, expialibrosis.
yeah. Like, but that's more of a rando than. Yeah, I'd even give you like a John Wetland as a random Yankee.
No, better. John Wetland was good.
He was good, but as a Yankee, he was a Ranger for a long time.
Yeah, he was okay.
You know, so there's a handful of them out there, but who was? I lost the name. There's a super random reliever that me and my buddy used to always talk about, but I can't. The name left me. Canyon Sturts.
I have lots of those, and they're for guys I didn't even cheer for.
But yeah, no,
Ruben Sierra is too good.
Probably, yeah. Although we're getting closer than Bernie Williams. Bernie Williams legitimately is very, very good.
No, I agree. Jim Edmonds, too good.
Yeah, Jim Edmonds is way too good.
Too good.
That'd be like saying Matt Holliday. Matt Holliday is very good baseball
You know
player.
one for me?
Who?
And just because I liked his name?
Who?
That's a big Bobby Grich guy.
Really?
Yeah.
So one of my rando affinities is he's a little like Evan, Bronson Arroyo. White guy
Is it
dreads.
the Breds?
What's the white guy dreads?
That is so bad. Why is he your friend? I get that with you. Are you just mean to people you allegedly like?
Yeah.
He's a big Evan guy.
Oh, dude, Evan's one of my best friends in the world. I love that dude.
Bronson Arroyo.
Yeah, Evan. No, Bronson Arroyo. You know why I like Bronson Arroyo? So my buddy Matt, he was a huge Pirates fan when we were growing up, and Bronson Arroyo threw a perfect game in like AAA for the Pirates, and so he was super jazzed about it. And then he gets acquired by the Red Sox, and I was like, "Oh man, let's go! We got this dude." And then he kind of like gave A-Rod the what for in 04, and so I'm like, "All right, I like this guy."
Not a bad rando.
You know, that's a pretty good rando. There's a lot. I mean, my most random affinity for the Red Sox is Manny Del Carmen.
Oh. That's a good. What is wrong with you?
What?
You weren't around yet, but you know another guy that I like?
Who?
Tom Herr.
Okay.
Played second base for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
I almost was a Cardinals fan.
Really?
Almost.
You like how they organizationally
Because of Tommy?
No, because of Ozzie Smith.
Oh, sure.
Almost.
Light hitting Ozzie Smith?
Until they started just dealing the Dodgers fits in the early 80s. I'm like, yeah, I hate those
Out
guys.
on this guy?
I'm a ride with Ozzie.
How about my Willie McGee poll earlier? You got to give me credit
I'm
there.
a big Willie McGee fan because I was a big fan of those guys that had were their
the Sox high?
And he had he was a big high booty guy.
Yeah.
High booty, low back, right? Like Willie, he walked
funny, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of those really fast guys do.
Lonnie Smith was like that.
They got like tight hamstrings,
Yeah.
so they kind of walk a little goofy.
The big booty Trudies. That's what I call them. What? I got a nick. I mean,
you got a nickname for everybody
and everything.
Yeah. No, I like.
You see, I put Justin in the family. I just call him Jr.
Yeah, I saw that.
I didn't realize he's only 30. He's kind of combative, but it's okay.
No, yeah, he's all right. He's pretty cool.
He's
pretty cool.
And he'll go to some.
Paul Abbott. That's more random.
I like Paul Abbott. That's a good one.
I prefer Jim Abbott. What?
You just were chomping at the bit to say something nice about David.
No.
Dude was batting 1,000.
Yeah, now he's down to like 990.
Hey, speaking of which, did you like my polls?
Which one?
What was the last one I gave you since we're in the Bet On It segment?
Yesterday you gave me Georgia.
Yep.
You gave me SIU.
Yep.
Both winners.
What was the one I said? I hate to say this, but I like your guys tonight because they're not your guys.
Which one?
Who slid into your DMs?
Oh, Gonzaga.
They rolled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rolled.
Gonzaga. Yeah. Well, I did get LSU though.
So did you watch that?
Yeah.
Oh, how? And I told you exactly how that was going to go.
You did.
I was like, I like LSU. They almost fit all the measurables. What I do is I don't trust them down the stretch, and it almost happened.
They played it exactly out, but they did it early enough that they had time to crawl back in.
349, and you had to be thinking.
I was like, LSU.
And then all of a sudden they hit the random three from the wing.
Yep.
Tennessee comes over and comes down and throws it to no one.
Got it down to like 5.
Then they they foul, then you get the intent, the flagrant. And I was like, oh, man. Vegas just let 90% of the public win. It was like 89% of the money was on LSU.
Yeah.
Yeah, free those guys. What a if you were on the other end, you were probably
you were pulling your hair out.
Yeah.
Pulling your hair out. But yeah, I'm sitting there and I'm going.
SIU cruised, as did Georgia.
As did Georgia. Got the win outright, like you said they might.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, man.
You're batting pretty good. You're 2 for 2 yesterday. We like it.
Not bad.
Love to see it.
Not bad. You want another?
Do we have a winner today?
I got 2.
2 winners.
Yep.
And I'm going back to your old stomping grounds. You can pull it up as you will.
Okay.
I like Evansville,
and I like Missouri State.
Oh man, you are living in the Missouri Valley.
On a hunch about what's going on in the conference down the stretch.
Ooh, okay.
Shane, you don't have to kick him off. I mean, you can let him talk.
Evansville and Missouri State. So
you can let it ride.
Missouri State's a 1.5 point dog against Belmont.
Yep.
And Evansville is an 8.5 point dog. Ooh, you're going against the Fighting Drake Bulldogs?
Who do I always talk about as a good team?
Evansville.
Drake. And I know them. Give me the Purple Aces, and not just because I like to play cards.
To deal? You're not feeling Drake today?
Not enough.
Ooh.
Is that a drink? Purple Aces?
See?
Well, I'm just wondering.
I played some blackjack over the weekend.
Did you?
Yeah.
Out in like public or house game or?
In public. I was at this. I went to it wasn't at a casino. I went to like an event.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was fun.
Was it played like normally?
Yeah. There was a dealer. They like brought in a dealer and everything.
Where was your position on the table?
I was second from the right. I don't know what number that is, but is it 2 then?
Yeah.
You go from the right? Yeah. So I was at 2.
Okay.
I'm not like card counting or anything. I don't math like that, but
I just wondered like who was last. Good player, bad player.
Changed out. There was a couple of both.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it was fun though. I was at the Durham did a speakeasy thing.
Oh, nice.
And so they had card games in there and kind of like the back rooms and stuff.
If I had any balls, I would be Team Speakeasy, but I don't.
It was pretty fun. Like I had a good time.
I just don't go out after 7 enough.
And there was a lot of people there too. You wouldn't have liked it. Like there was.
That's
Get my nuts! Get my nuts!
It definitely would have been.
That's not what I said.
It definitely would have been outside your comfort zone.
You said if you had any balls.
No, I said if you did.
That's bet on it. We will be back.
Here's some pine cones on the stick.
To wrap up the show on Hurrdat Sports Live.
A twig, maybe.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DBM Ravi Lulla. We're here on the Pillar Exterior stage as we wrap up the show for you here on a Wednesday. Every once in a while, we're just guys being dudes naming random baseball players, which I really appreciate.
I'm just going down the rabbit hole now.
I mean, yeah, you went from irrational love. Now we're in irrational hate.
There's only a handful of those. Darren Dreifert, I have an irrational hate for.
So you know what it is, and you brought up a good point because he made a lot of money for the Dodgers and didn't really ever play.
Yeah.
There's a
Much
few,
like Kevin Brown.
There's a few. Oh yeah. How do you think Yankees fans feel about Kevin Brown?
I don't know. A lot different than Tampa Bay, or Florida. I mean, because that's about it.
That's about the only. I had a nice run with the Padres.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
nice. You're right. Good pull.
He was on that '98 team that made the.
He started wearing his jerseys too small as he just kept injecting, and it's just like.
Allegedly,
this guy can no longer throw the ball over the plate without it leaving the yard. It's kind of irrational for KB.
Your hatred?
Well, he stole at the same time that
Dreifert was.
Yeah.
So there's a couple guys.
Jeff Kent.
You hate? Oh, well, because he was a giant. He was a giant,
and he's
Dean
apparently
Blandino.
a bad guy.
Yeah, Dean Blandino, hardcore. One of a couple of them that I really Carl Crawford.
I wasn't a Crawford guy. I
hated Carl Crawford.
Crawford is just me being childish.
Yeah. Why?
Because
he was supposed to go to Nebraska or what?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm like, man, help my guy coach Solichel.
I've got a little bit of resentment towards Joe Mauer for that.
I think Mauer's interesting. Mauer's one of those careers. You know how we went down this was off air.
Yeah.
We went down the Kirby Puckett rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And Mauer's numbers are interesting with like great offensive catchers.
Yeah.
And his career was cut short. You know, he's concussed.
Yeah. He did end up playing a pretty long time. Like he's got 15 years.
But you got to look at the games within those years.
I mean, I think it's better than you think.
What did he get to 11? Probably.
He got to 15 years.
No, I'm talking about like real seasons.
So what number do you want to cut the games off at?
120.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah.
Thank you.
But 11 out of 15 at 120 or more.
No, but I'm just
like
saying,
that's pretty good.
You threw out 15, and I'm like, gotta get inside the years.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, there's like a 109 and a 113 in there,
which isn't terrible
for a catcher. Like that's not bad. Positionally, like I just think it's like I remembered him being injured more than he was. Like I felt like he missed more time than he actually did. But he does have a weird sort of career because the dude had really no power whatsoever. He has the 128 home run year, which smells a little funny, but 306 as a catcher is going to stand up for a while. Like that's a pretty unprecedented level of being able to rake it for a catcher. So like Joe Mauer's an interesting one, but he's the guy that was supposed to replace Chris Wenke at Florida State. And I ended up getting stuck with Chris Ricks instead.
Oh yeah.
So Joe Mauer was committed to Florida State in that same class. They kind of knew he wasn't going to end up going there. They get Chris Ricks and Adrian McPherson.
Was that the tail end of Rick's time there?
No, that was the beginning.
It was the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
01 was the beginning of his time there. So Chris Ricks had ACC Freshman of the Year, great year, never got any better.
Did you want Rick to get that job?
Mark Richt? Yes, 100%. Yeah, that was my guy.
Okay.
I was hoping he'd go to Georgia.
Irrational affinity.
I love Mark Richt.
Me too.
Like, I was mad when Georgia fired him.
I remember when Georgia came to the CWS, asked Severe, he was waiting in line for a barbecue deal because they were right outside before you got up that old 3-story elevator. I don't know how many times you got on that thing in Rosenblatt, but it was like, boy, I'll take this.
I wasn't getting credentialed back at Rosenblatt.
And he was in line waiting, and I'm like, why is Mark Richt sitting by himself over there?
Yeah.
They're going to beat Fresno. Little did I not know. I'm like, excuse me, huge fan. It was weird. It was weird, but I still have it. It's on a Baseball Digest paper.
I love Mark Richt. I wanted him to take over. Like after Bowden won in '99, I was kind of like, all right, you got your second one. Like you can get step in. Like let Mark Richt take over because it was pretty clear that he was gonna leave pretty soon. He leaves the next year for the Georgia job. But I was mad at Georgia for letting go. I get it was the right decision with Kirby Smart. Like I get it now. But at the time I was mad at Georgia. I like Mark Richt so much that I was happy when he had that kind of miracle season at Miami. And I hate Miami. On two fronts, I hate Miami. But I like Mark Richt so much that I was like, okay, you go, Mark Richt. You show Georgia. You show Georgia what's up.
So were you surprised at Severe's quarterback choices?
I was not really.
So I think the longer this thing is going on, I think the more people are gravitating towards Cam Ward.
So you know what it was? And you sent me this video. It's like 15 seconds.
Oh, when they're training together?
It's like 15 seconds of him and Shedeur. And Shedeur comes off as like Nepo baby. And Cam Ward comes off like a dog.
But I will say this. I do think one is better built for a market. My opinion is Shedeur would be better handling himself in a big market.
Because he's used to the spotlight.
Totally.
Sure.
And I get it. You think he slanders linemen, but he typically says the right things.
I mean, he did slander his linemen. Like, he threw those guys under the bus.
So, but it was in response to, you're going back to when he mispronounced, he's like, well, how many times did Raiola get hit?
Yeah.
Well, I give him a mulligan because it was fresh after the game and he got his ass whipped.
He did.
That was.
Like, you felt bad for him at a certain point.
Yeah. Deadpool. Like, yeah.
Yeah, like, you look at him and
so
go.
I get it.
He's young. It's tough. Like, I get it.
Dang, can I get a mulligan?
Like, listen, I'm not gonna hold it against him forever. Like, I don't dislike Shedeur as an NFL prospect as much as it seems like some people do. Like, I think it's closer in terms of skill set.
Like, I think Cam would be much better in Nashville than Shedeur just because it's Nashville.
So I don't know if I go the opposite way. Like, I do think Shedeur's better.
Oh, you like Cam in like the New York market?
No. I think Shedeur's better in a big market. I don't know that means Shedeur's worse in a small market. Like, I don't know if he's worse in Nashville because he's used to the lights. I do think he's better in New York.
Well, he'd have to be a little grimier.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know if, like, I think you'd have to be grimier in like a Philadelphia or Chicago. Not that they're drafting quarterback. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, I watched a sensational breakdown between how close. So there's two guys, Matt Miller and who's the guy that ESPN let go? Used to be the insider.
A draft guy?
Yep. McShay.
Oh yeah. He's over at the Ringer now.
Did a breakdown that Dart to Sanders is just as close
as Sanders
to Ward. Even though when you're watching film and the breakdown was great, I'm going to watch Greg Cosell later on. But
yeah,
Dart's one of those guys that's constantly climbing the pocket, and
which NFL guys love,
and getting vertical for plays whether he's running or scrambling, versus Shedeur's precision and anticipation. But he's like not a ton of difference in watching the productivity between the two. I was kind of surprised.
Could I make the argument that I think the productivity can be a little inflated in a Lane Kiffin offense?
Yeah, well, how come it doesn't work for his receivers?
I don't know.
I mean, they haven't been hitting on receivers.
No, I get it.
So I don't know about that.
Okay.
I mean, really, your only real comp would be Corral.
His name is.
And he shredded the UFL.
Yeah.
I don't know if shredded, maybe a little strong.
Might be aggressive. He was no Adrian Martinez.
But I can't wait to see what happens with these running backs. That's my thing.
Yeah, the Hampton thing's interesting. Like, there's some legitimate love for Hampton.
He is sweet.
Are you still riding with your guy from Iowa?
Oh,
Johnson?
Caleb?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Especially if he gets his own scheme.
Okay.
He's incredible.
Hey, do you like him?
He's incredible.
You like him better or worse than Hampton?
Oh, wow.
I know this is hard for you.
I probably like Hampton.
A little better?
I'm not going to kid you, though.
Why?
I like them both better than Ashton.
What's the differentiator between Hampton and Johnson for you?
Top end.
Okay.
Top end.
Like ceiling?
Yeah.
Why do you like both those guys better than Genty?
I don't love his running style.
Okay. What about it?
But it's been proven to work, though.
Yeah.
He takes a lot of shots. He gets hit.
Is he a guy that you look at almost like I don't know if this makes sense, like a Todd Gurley, where it's like, hey, he's gonna be super productive for like 3 years?
Probably not, because his frame is better than Gurley's.
Okay.
So,
but that would
Gurley
be your
was
concern.
In Lincoln a couple. As a matter of fact, Gurley was at the.
He was at Colorado game, yeah.
And just
because he's tight with some
he was with Dom Rhule.
Oh, because he knows Corey though, the strength coach, right?
So watching those, like standing next to him, I could see. And granted, he's lost a little weight, but the way his
frame is
stretched, I could see why it didn't work.
Yeah,
but
long term, yeah.
You know, and a degenerative knee doesn't help, but that's a guy that I have a weird affinity for.
Gurley?
Yes.
But that's your concern, is that it's a maybe burn sprite, but real shortly for Jonty.
His frame is built to handle it. I just don't know how productive that can be over time. Now, again, I thought the same thing about Derrick Henry, and he looks the exact same in 24 as he did in 17.
Yeah,
so.
he's been doing this for a long time. It looks exactly the same.
And they have similar training regimens.
But he is also, I mean, I think Henry's your outlier for a lot of reasons, right? What about the two Ohio State guys? Where are they in the pecking order for you? Judkins and Henderson.
So I like Henderson better than Judkins, even though Severe made a good point about Judkins' competitiveness. Like, he is certifiable.
Yeah.
He's mad all the time, stays on the gas. He can catch the rock. He's really good in pass pro.
Which you kind of like from a running back, being a little.
But I like, so.
You like Henderson's running style better?
I think Henderson is his own guy, and I think Judkins is a gap guy. So I think running scheme will matter. Judkins in like San Francisco, and they're not going to take it.
No
running back, but Judkins in San Francisco with that kind of scheme would be incredible.
Although, okay, so I'm just looking at like a big board. If Judkins is third round guy, which I think is reasonable,
I can't believe a guy like Woody Marks is going to get pushed into the 4th or 5th round.
For sure. But like if Judkins goes third round, you don't think the 49ers maybe take a flyer with an aging and injury-prone Christian McCaffrey?
He's really good.
You saw him when they had backup running backs last year. That it was a little rough out there.
You know, Henderson doesn't fumble.
Yeah.
He doesn't fumble, and he's got good size. Now, he's a long-legged guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a better runner than, like, I know this is going to be blasphemy, but they have similar styles with their speed gate.
Okay.
Is Darren McFadden.
Oh, okay.
Can you see it when they get out into the open field?
Yeah. I know. Listen, Darren McFadden was great, and I know some people
he just couldn't change his pad level. He was so upright all the time.
Yeah.
It's just not built for the long haul.
Yeah.
Now Henderson, I like, man. He's really good.
Who's a guy? Is there a guy in this draft that you think, hey, kind of regardless of scheme, they can do both?
So that's why I like Marks.
Okay, but he's going to be way down.
I can't even say that about Caleb Joseph. I think Caleb Johnson is a zone guy.
Caleb Joseph, Creighton, great.
I don't know about great, but
it seems like he's a good dude.
Yeah. Oh, you meant as a person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of great, Dominic in the chat for the random MLB guy says Gary Gaetti.
Oh, Gary Gaetti's
a good pull.
That's a good pull.
Gary Gaetti's a good one. I think that's our walk-off for the day, Gary Gaetti.
Yeah, he played with Bruno and those guys in Minnesota.
Yeah, he had Minnesota, and then
with like Glad.
He had St. Louis too.
Yeah, tail end.
Late. So wasn't he the last guy to wear the flapless helmet? I believe he was, because you got grandfathered in if you started before.
Yeah.
I think he was the last standing flapless batting helmet guy. That's my memory of Gary Gaetti.
I'm going to have to Google some images. If you're right, that's weird. That's a weird.
It's a weird thing to remember.
Says the guy that can only remember weird things. But yeah.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will be back tomorrow. More Hurrdat Sports Live.